Hello everyone, and welcome to the DXD Tales. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei was a primordial titan and fall in love with the devil princess Rias Gremory. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Awakening of Time. The clock's ticking echoed unnaturally in Issei Hyodo's ears, each second stretching into what felt like minutes. Sunlight crawled across his desk in agonizing slow motion, dust motes suspend. Dead in amber beams like stars frozen in their celestial dance. His classmates moved through molasses, Matsuda's perverted grin forming at a glacial pace, Motohama's glasses glinting as his head turned with excruciating deliberation. Then, like a rubber band snapping back, everything lurched to normal speed. The teacher's chalk scraped against the blackboard, students fidgeted in their seats, and cherry blossoms outside the window danced in the spring breeze. Issei pressed his palms against his temples, blinking rapidly. The third episode this week. Hyodo-kun. The teacher's voice pierced his disorientation. Are you with us, or should I send you to the nurse's office? I'm fine, he managed, straightening in his seat. Just didn't sleep well. Not entirely a lie. His dreams lately had been strange. Cosmic vistas of swirling nebulae. A golden scythe cutting through the fabric of reality. Mountains crumbling beneath his feet as lightning scorched the sky. And always, that sense of immeasurable age, of having witnessed the birth and death of stars. The final bell rang, releasing him from the classroom's confines. Kuo Academy's hallways bustled with students eager to escape into the afternoon sunshine. But Issei moved against the current, finding strange comfort in the solitude of the old school building's shadow. Something about this place resonated with him lately, like a tuning fork vibrating at a frequency only he could feel. He settled beneath a massive oak tree, its ancient roots erupting from the soil like the gnarled knuckles of a buried giant. Leaning against the trunk, he closed his eyes, feeling the rough bark press against his back. There's something different about you. The voice startled him. Standing before him was Rias Gremory, third-year student, president of the Occult Research Club, and undisputed school idol. Her crimson hair caught the sunlight like liquid fire, cascading over her shoulders in waves that seemed almost alive. But it was her eyes that captured Issei's attention, cerulean blue with an intensity that suggested she wasn't merely looking at him, but through him, peeling away layers he didn't know existed. Gremory-senpai, he acknowledged, rising to his feet with unconscious grace that surprised even himself. I didn't see you there. Her head tilted slightly, curiosity evident in the subtle arch of her brow. Most people don't, when I don't wish to be seen. She stepped closer, bringing with her the scent of roses and something else, something ancient and powerful. You're Issei Hyodo, second year. Unremarkable academic record, no club activities, known primarily for your enthusiastic appreciation of the female form. He should have felt embarrassed. His reputation as part of the school's perverted trio wasn't exactly something to be proud of, but instead, he felt a strange indignation rise within him, as if her assessment had insulted someone else entirely. Perhaps there's more to me than what's in my student file, he replied, the words emerging with a quiet dignity that felt both foreign and intimately familiar. A smile ghosted across her lips. Perhaps indeed. She extended her hand, offering him a pamphlet. The Occult Research Club is hosting an open house tomorrow evening. You might find it illuminating. Their fingers brushed as he accepted the paper, and Somethi. An electric surged between them, not attraction, though she was undeniably beautiful, but recognition, as if two long separated pieces of an ancient puzzle had momentarily aligned. Her eyes widened fractionally, confirming she'd felt it too. Without another word, she turned and walked away, the sunlight setting her crimson hair ablaze. Issei watched her go, the pamphlet warm in his hand. The school grounds suddenly seemed smaller, more confined than they had moments before, as if he'd briefly glimpsed something vast beyond their boundaries. The walk home took him past the Central Park, where cherry blossoms spiraled down like pink snow. He paused at the fountain, watching water arc and fall in hypnotic patterns. His reflection rippled on the surface, ordinary brown hair, ordinary brown eyes, ordinary Japanese teenage face. Yet something about his own image seemed increasingly unfamiliar, like a mask worn too long. Excuse me. He turned to find a girl with long black hair and violet eyes regarding him shyly. Her school uniform didn't match Kuo's, and something about her posture, a carefully calculated vulnerability, triggered a warning deep in his mind. Would you go out with me? She asked, her voice honeyed with practiced sweetness. Every instinct screamed danger, though he couldn't understand why. This should have been the moment he'd dreamed of, a cute girl asking him out. Yet his body tensed as if preparing for combat. I've noticed you walking by here, she continued, twisting a strand of hair around her finger. My name is Yuma Amano. I've had my eye on you for a while now. Lie, something ancient whispered within him. Predator. Despite the warning bells, curiosity pushed him forward. Sure, he heard himself say. How about Sunday? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Perfect. Sunday arrived with ominous clouds gathering on the horizon. Issei dressed carefully, still unsure why he was proceeding with a date that every fiber of his being warned against. They met at the train station, Yuma resplendent in a pink dress that emphasized her delicate figure. The date proceeded with mechanical predictability, a movie, lunch at a cafe, wind out shopping through the district's boutiques. As the afternoon waned, she led him to the park, now deserted as the first raindrops began to fall. I had a wonderful time, she said, skipping ahead to the fountain where they'd first met. Would you do something for me, Issei-kun? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Would you die for me? The transformation was instantaneous. Her sweet demeanor evaporated like morning dew, replaced by cruel amusement. Her clothing dissolved into straps of black leather that barely covered her now mature figure, and massive black wings erupted from her back, sending feathers scattering across the wet pavement. The name's Rainer, little boy, she sneered, violet eyes now glowing with malice. And unfortunately for you, you possess something that threatens my superiors. A spear of pink light materialized in her hand, humming with deadly energy. Though I can't sense any sacred gear in you yet, she continued, circling him like a vulture, our intelligence is never wrong. So, nothing personal, you just need to disappear. The spear hurled toward him with blinding speed, yet to Issei, it seemed to crawl through the air. The world around him slowed once more. Raindrops suspended in their descent, Rainer's triumphant smile stretching in slow motion. Unlike the previous episodes, this time he could move within the distorted time. He stepped aside, watching the spear of light pass through the space where his heart had been moments before. Time snapped back to normal. Rainer's expression morphed from victory to disbelief. How did you? She didn't finish the question, instead conjuring another spear. No human has reflexes like that. I'm not entirely sure I am human, Issei responded, the words emerging unbidden from some deep reservoir of forgotten knowledge. The fallen angel's eyes narrowed. What are you? Instead of answering, Issei raised his hand. Golden light sparked between his fingers, ancient symbols momentarily flickering across his skin. The sensation was exhilarating, power surging through veins that had forgotten their true purpose, muscles remembering strength that could topple mountains. But it was fleeting. Whatever had awakened wasn't fully conscious yet, and the golden light sputtered out, leaving him defenseless as Rainer's second spear found its mark, piercing through his chest in a spray of crimson. Pain exploded through his body as he collapsed to the rain-soaked ground. Blood pooled beneath him, mixing with puddles that reflected the stormy sky above. Whatever you are, Rainer said, standing over him with wings spread wide. You'll die like everything else. She leaned down, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Blame God for putting a sacred gear inside you. As darkness closed in, Issei's fading consciousness reached not for God, but for something far older, an essence that had existed before divine light separated from primordial darkness. His blood formed strange patterns on the pavement. Runes that hadn't been seen on Earth since before humans walked upright. If only, he whispered, life ebbing from him, if only I had more time. The irony of those words would only become apparent later. He died as the sun set, rain washing away the last of his mortal blood. Yet death, for Issei Hyodo, proved impermanent. Consciousness returned gradually, like tide washing over a forgotten shore. He was lying on something soft, staring up at an unfamiliar ceiling. His body felt strange, lighter and heavier simultaneously, as if his very atoms had been reconfigured. You're awake. Rias Gremory sat beside the bed, her crimson hair spilling over shoulders clad in the Kuo Academy uniform. Behind her stood a petite white-haired girl with a neutral expressio. And a beautiful young woman with long black hair tied in a ponytail. Gremory senpai, Issei managed, his voice rough. What happened? I died. Yes, she confirmed, leaning forward with elbows on her knees. You were killed by a fallen angel. I found you in the park, your life fading. Her eyes held his, searching. I intended to revive you as a devil, to make you part of my peerage. The dark-haired woman behind her stepped forward. But something unexpected happened, she said, her voice a melodious contralto with underlying steel. I'm Akano Himahima, by the way. Rias's queen. When I began the reincarnation ritual, Rias continued, your body rejected the evil pieces. Not violently. They simply wouldn't bond with your soul. Her brow furrowed. Yet you were revived nonetheless. Through means I don't understand. Issei sat up slowly, noticing he wore nothing but boxers. His chest, where Rainer's spear had pierced him, bore no wound, only a strange golden mark. She resembled an hourglass surrounded by archaic symbols. What am I? He whispered, tracing the mark with his fingertips. That, said Rias, is what we're trying to determine. She gestured to the white-haired girl. This is Kaneko Tuju, my rook. Her senjutsu abilities allow her to sense the nature of living beings, yet she can't identify your energy signature. Kaneko nodded, her golden eyes studying him with feline intensity. Not devil, not angel, not yokai. Her nose wrinkled slightly. Ancient, like mountains, like stars. The description resonated with something deep within Issei, calling to mind his strange dreams of cosmic vistas and crumbling mountains. There's something else, Akano added, moving to a desk where several books lay open. While you were unconscious, those marks appeared on your skin, then faded. I managed to copy some before they disappeared. She held up a sketch of interlocking symbols. They don't match any magical language we know, not devil script, not angelic runes. Not even primordial demonic text. Issei swung his legs over the side of the bed, testing his strength. He felt surprisingly good, better than good. Energy thrummed through his body. His senses sharper than they'd ever been. The room's details came into crisp focus. Dust motes dancing in sunbeams, the subtle variations in the wooden floorboards, the almost imperceptible current O.F. power emanating from each of the women. Where are we? He asked, looking around at the Victorian-style furnishings. The Occult Research Club room, Rias answered. Or more accurately, my base of operations at Kuo Academy. This entire old-school building is devil territory. Issei nodded, absorbing this information with surprising equanimity. And you're devils. Actual hell, brimstone, pitchforks devils. Akano laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a summer breeze. Not quite so medieval. We're devils, yes, but the modern variety. Less about corrupting souls, more about contracts and influence. Though we do still embrace certain indulgences, Rias added with a small smile. Issei found himself smiling in return, an unexpected ease settling between them despite the bizarre circumstances. Thank you for saving me, however it happened. You're welcome, Rias replied. Though I'm as curious as you are about what exactly occurred. Would you allow us to run some tests? Nothing invasive, just magical diagnostics to better understand your nature. Before he could respond, the door opened to admit a handsome blonde boy and a girl with chestnut hair and glasses. Ah, perfect timing, Rias said. Issei, this is Kiba Yuto, my knight, and Sona Citri, a fellow devil and the student council president. Kiba offered a friendly wave, while Sona adjusted her glasses, her analytical gaze sweeping over Issei with undisguised curiosity. This is the anomaly, she asked, her tone precise and clipped. Fascinating. The magical disturbance last night was significant enough to register on monitoring systems as far as the underworld. Disturbance, Issei echoed. When Rias attempted to revive you, Sona explained, approaching with measured steps, there was a temporal flux that briefly disrupted the barrier around Kuo. Time itself seemed to hesitate. The words triggered a cascade of sensations, memories of his strange episodes, the slowing of time when Rainer attacked. The ancient power that had briefly flickered within him before fading. I've been experiencing something similar, he admitted. Moments where everything around me slows down. And dreams. He hesitated, suddenly self-conscious about sharing the cosmic visions that had haunted his sleep. Go on, Rias encouraged, leaning forward with genuine interest. Dreams of space, of stars being born and dying, of a golden age long before humans existed. And always this sense of immeasurable time. He looked down at his hands, half expecting to see the golden light spark between his fingers again. It never made sense until now. Sona and Rias exchanged significant glances. I've brought the analysis circle components, Sona said, producing a small leather case from her school bag. With your permission, we can begin immediately. Issei nodded, standing up. What do I need to do? Stand in the center of the room, Rias directed, as Sona began placing crystalline objects at precise intervals around the floor. And try to relax. This won't hurt, but you might feel a slight pressure as our magic interacts with your essence. As the devils completed their preparations, Issei closed his eyes, focusing on the steady rhythm of his breathing. Deep within, something stirred, ancient and powerful, like a leviathan slowly rising from the ocean depths. It had always been there, he realized. Dormant until death had cracked the shell of his humanity. Ready? Rias asked, now standing at one point of a triangle formed with Sona and Akeno. Ready, he confirmed, opening his eyes. The three devils began chanting in a language that sounded like liquid metal, beautiful and dangerous simultaneously. Crimson light flowed from Rias, blue from Sona, and golden from Akeno, the energies weaving together to form a complex, three-dimensional sigil in the air around Issei. As the magical construct tightened around him, the mark on his chest began to glow, pulsing in counterpoint to the devil's magic. Other symbols appeared on his skin, flowing script that crawled up his arms, across his torso, along his neck. The room's temperature dropped dramatically, frost forming on the windows despite the spring warmth outside. Then time fractured. One moment, the devils were mid-chant, their magic flowing smoothly. The next, they were frozen in place, their bodies suspended between heartbeats. The entire world seemed to hold its breath, caught in an impossible moment of perfect stillness. Except for Issei, who moved through the frozen tableau with growing wonderment. He approached Rias, studying her face, determination and concentration captured in absolute detail, a single strand of crimson hair caught in the act of falling across her cheek. He reached out, hesitant, and gently tucked the strand behind her ear. The contact shattered the temporal distortion. Time crashed back into normal flow with a thunderclap that shook the building to its foundations. The magical circle exploded outward, knocking everyone off their feet. Issei remained standing, golden light now emanating from his body in pulsing waves. The symbols on his skin stabilized, no longer flowing, but settled into a complex pattern that covered him from neck to waist. What? Rias gasped, struggling to her feet. What are you? Before he could answer, before he could even begin to formulate a response, knowledge poured into his mind like molten gold, burning away uncertainty. Images flashed before his eyes, a golden throne atop a mountain that touched the stars, battles that reshapes continents. Imprisonment in the depths of Tartarus, fragmentation of his essence across dimensions, rebirth cycle after cycle, always with powers suppressed, memories locked away. Until now, I am Kronos, he said, his voice resonating with power that made the air itself vibrate. Titan of time, harvester of souls, he who was before gods. The words emerged with absolute certainty, yet even as he spoke them, confusion returned. He was also Issei Hyodo, ordinary Japanese teenager, member of the perverted trio, human boy with human desires and fears. The golden light flickered, then faded. Issei swayed on his feet, suddenly exhausted. But I'm also me, he added weakly, before collapsing to his knees. Rias was at his side in an instant, supporting him with surprising strength. Both, perhaps, she suggested, her voice gentle despite the wariness in her eyes. Two natures in one form. Impossible, Sona stated, adjusting her glasses which had been knocked askew. The Titans were sealed away eons ago, their essence scattered across dimensions to prevent their return. Even if reincarnation were possible, no human body could contain such power without being consumed. Yet here he stands, Akeno countered. Approaching cautiously, she reached out, her fingertips hovering over the markings on Issei's chest. These are definitely not devil runes, nor any magical language I've encountered. If he claims to be Kronos, quote, then we have a serious problem, Sona finished grimly. Issei looked between them, the competing identities within him creating a dissonance that made his head spin. I don't understand. Who exactly is Kronos? I know the name from mythology, but in the human world, Kronos is primarily known as a figure from Greek mythology, leader of the Titans, father of the first Olympian gods. Eventually overthrown by his son Zeus, Rias explained, helping him back to the sofa. But in supernatural circles, the Titans represent something far more significant. They were primordial beings who existed before most current supernatural factions, before angels and devils as we know them, before most pantheons established their divine hierarchies. Beings of such power that their very existence warped reality around them, Sona added. The war between the Titans and the Olympian gods, the Titanomachy, was one of the most devastating conflicts in cosmic history. It reshaped continents, created new dimensions, and altered the fundamental rules of magic. After their defeat, Rias continued, the Titans couldn't be destroyed, they were too fundamental to reality itself. Instead, they were imprisoned in Tartarus, the deepest level of the Greek underworld, their essences eventually fragmented and scattered to prevent their return. Issei absorbed this information, pieces of his dreams suddenly making terrible sense. And you think I'm, what? Kronos reborn, a fragment of his power in human form. That's what we need to determine, Sona said, her practical nature reasserting itself. The temporal distortions you've experienced would align with Kronos' dominion over time. But a full manifestation would be. She paused, searching for the right word. Catastrophic. I don't feel catastrophic, Issei muttered, looking down at his ordinary human hands. The markings on his skin had faded again, leaving only the hourglass symbol on his chest. I feel like me, just more. Akeno sat beside him, close enough that he could smell her unique scent, ozone and honey. Perhaps that's the point, she suggested. Not a full reincarnation, but something new. Human and Titan intertwined. Quote, a thoughtful silence fell over the room, broken only by the ticking of an antique clock on the mantelpiece, a sound that now seemed strangely significant to Issei. Each second a tangible entity he could almost reach out and touch. We should inform the Mao, Sona finally said, addressing Rias. If a Titan essence has truly reawakened, even partially, the implications for the balance of power. Not yet, Rias interrupted, her tone surprisingly firm. We need more information before involving the underworld government. If word spreads prematurely, Rai faction will either try to control or destroy him. She turned to Issei, her expression softening. You deserve a chance to understand your nature before being thrust into supernatural politics. Sona frowned but didn't argue. 3 days, she conceded. After that, I'll be obligated to report this, regardless of our friendship. Rias nodded her acceptance of these terms. Akeno, Kaneko, Kiba, please give us the room. I'd like to speak with Issei alone. The others filed out, Sona departing with a final measuring look at Issei. When the door closed, Rias sat across from him, her posture both regal and somehow vulnerable. I apologize for the chaos, she said with a small smile. This isn't how I typically welcome people to the supernatural world. I'm guessing Titan reincarnations aren't an everyday occurrence. Issei replied, surprised by his own calm. The shock and confusion remained, but beneath them lay a bedrock of strange certainty, as if part of him had always known this day would come. Not in the last few millennia, no. Her smile widened briefly before growing serious again. Issei, I want you to know that whatever happens, whatever you are, I consider myself responsible for you now. I found you dying. I attempted to revive you, and even if that's not precisely what happened, you're under my protection. The declaration stirred something within him, not the cosmic power of Kronos, but something equally profound. In his previous life as just Issei, such attention from the school idol would have sent him into paroxysms of joy. Now, it resonated on a deep, level, recognition of a bond transcending ordinary human connection. Thank you, he said simply. I think I'm going to need all the protection I can get, especially from myself. We'll figure this out together, she promised, reaching across to take his hand. Her touch was warm, her skin soft despite the power he knew those hands contained. But first, practical matters. How are you feeling physically? Any pain or discomfort? He conducted a quick internal inventory. Surprisingly good. Better than before, actually. Like I've been running at half capacity my whole life without realizing it. Good. And mentally? 2 sets of memories, 2 identities, that can't be easy to integrate. It's not complete, he admitted. I get flashes, knowledge without context, power without full understanding of how to use it. It's like, quote. He searched for an analogy. Like reading a book in a language you only partially know. You recognize certain words, certain concepts, but the full meaning remains just out of reach. Rias nodded thoughtfully. That may be for the best, at least initially. If the full power and consciousness of Kronos were to manifest at once. Catastrophic, Issei finished, echoing Sona's earlier assessment. So what now? Now, you rest, she said firmly. It's nearly evening, and you've been through an extraordinary ordeal. Tomorrow, we'll begin testing the extent of your abilities in a controlled environment. She glanced at the window, where darkness had fallen outside. You should stay here tonight. The old school building is protected by powerful barriers that will help contain any temporal incidents while you sleep. The practical consideration hadn't occurred to him. What about my parents? They'll worry if I don't come home. Already handled, Rias assured him. A minor memory modification. They believe you're at a school training camp for the week. Under normal circumstances, the casual mention of manipulating his parents' memories might have disturbed him. Now, it seemed a necessary precaution. Thank you for thinking of that. She stood, smoothing her skirt. The room next door has been prepared. There are fresh clothes in tea. He wardrobe. They should fit well enough for now. As she moved toward the door, Issei called after her. Rias. The familiar use of her name emerged naturally, without the honorific his human upbringing would have dictated. What am I supposed to do if it happens again? The time-stopping thing. She paused, hand on the doorknob. Try to remain calm. Focus on your breathing. And remember that whatever power you possess, whatever being you partly are. Her eyes met his, intense and earnest. You're still Issei Hyodo too. That humanity might be your greatest strength. With those words, she left him alone with his thoughts. The room next door proved to be a comfortable bedroom with the same Victorian aesthetic as the club room. Issei showered in the adjoining bathroom, watching with fascination as the hourglass mark on his chest pulsed faintly with his heartbeat. The other symbols remained invisible, though he could almost feel them beneath his skin, waiting to emerge. Clean and dressed in borrowed pajamas, he lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, his mind too active for sleep despite his body's exhaustion. Questions tumbled through his consciousness. Why him? Why now? Was Issei Hyodo ever real? Or merely a temporary vessel for something ancient and terrible? And what of Rainer? Was she aware of what he truly was, or had she attacked him for different reasons? As if summoned by his thoughts, a soft knock sounded at the door. Come in, he called, sitting up. Akano entered, carrying a steaming cup on a small tray. She'd changed from her school uniform into a traditional Japanese yukata, the silk garment emphasizing her elegant figure while remaining modestly appropriate. I thought you might have trouble sleeping, she said, setting the tray on the bedside table. This tea contains herbs that calm the mind without dulling the senses. Thank you, he said, accepting the cup. The liquid inside was deep amber, its aroma complex and soothing. Akano remained standing, studying him with undisguised curiosity. May I? She asked, gesturing to the mark on his chest, visible at the V of his pajama top. He nodded, setting the tea aside. Her touch was light, fingertips tracing the golden hourglass with scientific precision rather than intimacy. Yet even this clinical contact sent a charge through his system, not merely physical attraction, though she was undeniably beautiful. But something more fundamental, as if her essence called to his. Fascinating, she murmured. The pattern is in constant flux, though too subtle for the naked eye to detect. It's almost like a clock. Issei finished as understanding dawned. It's counting. Yes, exactly. Her violet eyes lifted to his, wide with realization. But counting to what? I don't know, he admitted. But I think we'll find out soon. She withdrew her hand reluctantly. You should drink your tea while it's hot. It will help, I promise. As she turned to go, Issei asked, "What are you, Akeno?" Rias mentioned you're her queen, but I sense you're something more than just a devil. She stilled, tension visible in the line of her shoulders. When she turned back, her expression was carefully neutral. Perceptive. Most can't see past the devil energy. A small, sad smile curved her lips. I'm half-fallen angel, a heritage I've neither embraced nor entirely rejected. Does that frighten you, knowing what a fallen angel did to you today? No, he answered truthfully. Whatever I am now, I understand having a complicated identity. Something in her posture relaxed. We have that in common, then. Perhaps that's why. She trailed off, then shook her head slightly. Get some rest, Issei Hyodo, or Kronos, or whoever you decide to be. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. After she departed, Issei sipped the tea, finding she was right about its calming properties. His racing thoughts slowed, though they didn't entirely cease. Setting the empty cup aside, he lay back down, allowing his eyes to close. Sleep came more easily than expected, drawing him into dreams filled with golden light and ancient power. But unlike previous nights, these dreams didn't feel like memories of a distant past. Instead, they seemed like glimpses of possible futures, paths branching outward from this moment of awakening, each with its own promise and peril. In one, he stood atop a mountain, a golden scythe in his hand. Reality bending to his will as gods and mortals alike knelt before him. In another, he walked among humans, using subtle manipulations of time to heal and protect, his power tempered by compassion. In a third, most vivid of all, he stood with Rias and others he couldn't quite see clearly, facing some vast darkness that threatened to consume everything. Morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through Victorian windows. Issei woke feeling remarkably refreshed, the competing identities within him having reached a temporary détente during the night. He was both Issei and Kronos. Human and Titan, modern teenager and ancient being, contradictory yet somehow coherent. Clothes had been laid out for him, jeans, a t-shirt, and a button-down that could be worn open or closed. All fit perfectly, though he was certain they hadn't been there when he'd fallen asleep. Another small mystery in what promised to be a day full of them. He found Rias in the club room, dressed casually in a simple blouse and skirt rather than her school uniform. Sunlight caught in her crimson hair, surrounding her with a halo of fire that stirred something primal within him. "Good morning," she greeted, looking up from a thick, leather-bound book. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than expected," he admitted. Whatever was in Akeno's tea worked wonders. "She has many talents," Rias said with a small smile. "The others will join us shortly. We've arranged for a secure location to test your abilities, an abandoned quarry outside the city, protected by magical barriers." Issei nodded, grateful for the practical approach. Better to learn his capabilities in controlled circumstances than have them emerge chaotically in the middle of Kuo. Before they arrived, Rias continued, setting her book aside. "I wanted to ask how you're feeling about all this. Yesterday was overwhelming, to put it mildly." He considered the question seriously. "I'm surprisingly okay. Confused, certainly. Worried about what this means for my future. But not afraid, not exactly." He flexed his fingers, watching with fascination as golden light briefly sparked between them. "It feels right, somehow. Like I've been sleeping my whole life and I'm finally waking up." "That's encouraging," she said. "Many would be crushed by such a revelation. Maybe ordinary humans would," he acknowledged. "But I'm beginning to understand I was never entirely ordinary, even before this awakening. The memories are still fragmented, but I know Kronos. I chose this rebirth deliberately, for reasons that haven't fully revealed themselves yet." Rias leaned forward, intrigue evident in her expression. "You believe your reincarnation was intentional? Not just cosmic chance?" "Yes, though the why remains unclear." He paused, struggling to articulate concepts just beyond his conscious grasp. "Something's coming. Something that requires a Titan's intervention, but not a Titan's full destructive potential. Hence this hybrid existence. Titan essence housed in human form, power accessible but constrained by mortal limitations." "That's both reassuring and concerning," Rias said carefully. That sort of threat would necessitate such measures." Before he could respond, before he could even begin to formulate an answer to a question that resonated with importance, the club room door opened to admit Akeno, Hiba, and Kaneko. All dressed for a day in the field. Ready for Titan training? Akeno asked with a playful wink that somehow managed to be both friendly and suggestive. Issei stood, feeling a strange mix of teenage nervousness and ancient confidence. Ready as I'll ever be. As they prepared to depart, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in a decorative mirror, ordinary Japanese teenager on the surface. But with eyes that now held golden flecks among the brown, and an almost imperceptible aura of power surrounding him like a second skin. Issei Hyodo was gone, yet not entirely lost. Kronos had returned, yet not in full terrible glory. Something new had awakened. A being of dual nature, straddling the boundary between human and divine, present and past, destruction and creation. And as he followed Rias and her peerage out into the morning sunlight, time itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what this new existence would bring. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Fragments of Eternity. Golden light filtered through crystalline towers that scraped the heavens, casting prismatic rainbows across a city unlike any on modern Earth. Massive trees with silver bark and emerald leaves provided canopies over thoroughfares where beings of impossible beauty and grace moved with purpose. The air itself seemed alive, charged with power, fragrant with unfamiliar blossoms, resonating with harmonic frequencies that made conventional music seem like crude noise by comparison. Atop the tallest spire, a figure sat upon a throne carved from a single massive diamond. In his right hand, he held an hourglass where golden sand flowed in defiance of gravity, up as often as down, sometimes sideways, occasionally suspending entirely before resuming its eternal dance. Is this what you foresaw, Prometheus? The enthroned figure's voice reverberated across dimensions, each syllable pregnant with power. A slender being with eyes like distant stars knelt before the diamond throne. Only shadows and fragments, Lord Kronos. The future remains mutable, especially now that the cosmic convergence approaches. And the Olympians, blind to the greater threat, as always. They believe your imprisonment eternal, your power broken. A smile curved lips that had pronounced the fate of galaxies. A useful misconception. The scene dissolved, reforming into a battlefield of cosmic proportions. Continents shattered under divine footsteps. Lightning tore reality itself, while golden scythes harvested the very fabric of time. Gods and titans clashed with such force that new dimensions were born from the collision of incompatible powers. Father, a bearded figure hurled a lightning bolt that crackled with divine authority. Your age is ended. Surrender your throne, foolish child. The response came with terrible calm, time slowing around the speaker. You understand nothing of what approaches. Your victory today ensures doom tomorrow. Empty threats from a fallen king. Another bolt, another fracture in the cosmic order. Not threats, Zeus. Kronos raised his scythe as darkness engulfed him. Prophecy. The vision shattered into 1,000 fragments, each showing different epochs. Different realities, different possibilities. Through them all ran a constant theme, a gathering shadow, a threat beyond the comprehension of gods or mortals, and a single golden thread of hope stretching across millennia. Issei Hyodo awoke with a gasp, bolting upright in the unfamiliar bed. Sweat plastered his hair to his forehead, his heart hammering against his ribs with such force he feared it might burst through his chest. The hourglass mark burned golden against his skin, pulsing in counterpoint to his racing pulse. Just a dream, he whispered, then corrected himself. No, memory. 3 days had passed since his awakening, since Rainer's attack and the failed reincarnation that had instead triggered the emergence of his Titan essence. 3 days controlled experiments at the abandoned quarry, learning to harness abilities that felt simultaneously foreign and intimately familiar. He could slow time now, consciously rather than instinctively. Not stop it completely, not yet. But create localized fields where seconds stretched into minutes. His physical strength had increased exponentially, not to the level of Kaneko's Rook-enhanced power, but far beyond human capacity. Most significantly, he could see the golden threads of temporal possibility stretching from each person, each object, each decision point, an overwhelming perception he was still learning to filter. Rias and her peerage had been surprisingly supportive, adapting their training regimens to accommodate his unique needs. Even Sona, after her initial wariness, had Dead valuable insights from the vast Cetri family library regarding historical references to Titans. Yet for all their help, they couldn't reach the places his dreams took him each night, couldn't access the fragmented memories of a being who had shaped reality before devils or angels drew breath. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Issei. Rias's voice came through the door of the guest room that had become his temporary residence. Are you awake? Yes, he called, rising from the bed and pulling on a t-shirt to cover the glowing mark on his chest. Come in. She entered, already dressed in her school uniform despite the early hour. Her crimson hair cascaded over her shoulders in perfect waves, her blue eyes bright with intelligence and something else, concern, perhaps, or curiosity. Another dream? She asked, noting his disheveled appearance with a perceptiveness that never failed to impress him. He nodded, running fingers through sweat-dampened hair. More vivid than before. I think I saw Mount Orthes, the Titan capital, before the war, and fragments of the Titanomachy itself. That's significant progress, she said, settling gracefully on the edge of his bed. Your memories are returning more quickly than we anticipated. Not just memories, Issei admitted. Understanding. Context. I'm beginning to comprehend why I arranged this reincarnation. He paced the room, energy crackling around him in invisible waves that raised goosebumps on Rias's exposed skin. Something's coming, Rias. Something the gods couldn't face, something that requires a Titan's power but a human's adaptability. What exactly? He shook his head in frustration. That's still unclear. The memories come in fragments, pieces of a puzzle I can't quite assemble yet. He stopped pacing, turning to face her directly. But I know it involves the supernatural world, all factions, not just Greek or Roman pantheons. Devils, angels, fallen, yokai, everything. Rias absorbed this with remarkable composure. In the short time he'd known her, truly known her, beyond her school idol persona, Issei had come to admire her ability to process extraordinary information with pragmatic calm. Then we continue as planned, she said, rising from the bed. You'll attend classes today for the first time since your awakening. Maintaining your human routine may help stabilize your dual nature. And it prevents unwanted attention from the school administration. The mundane concern amidst cosmic revelations startled a laugh from him. Worried about my attendance record while apocalyptic threats loom on the horizon. A smile curved her lips. Even Titans must complete their education, Issei Hyodo. Besides, returning to normal activities provides excellent opportunities to practice controlling your abilities in everyday situations. She had a point. The controlled environment of the quarry was useful for testing the limits of his power, but learning to function ing ordinary humans without accidentally slowing time or perceiving their temporal threads was equally important. You're right, he conceded. School it is. Excellent. Akano prepared breakfast downstairs, something about proper nutrition being essential for growing Titans. Her smile widened at his expression. Her words, not mine. We leave in 30 minutes. After she departed, Issei showered and dressed in his Kuo Academy uniform, the familiar routine grounding him in his human identity. The mirror revealed a face that remained recognizably Issei Hyodo, though subtle changes had emerged. His brown eyes now flecked with gold, his posture naturally straighter, his movements more deliberate and graceful. Downstairs, he found not only Rias and Akano but the entire occult research crew. Gathered around a dining table laden with traditional Japanese breakfast foods. Good morning, Titan-kun, Akano greeted with her characteristic blend of teasing and respect. Her violet eyes sparkled with mischief as she poured tea into delicate porcelain cups. Did you dream of conquering worlds? Just renovating them, he replied with a smile, accepting the cup she offered. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, and a subtle current passed between them. Recognition of kindred complexity, of dual natures struggling for balance. Kaneko, pass the rice, Kiba requested, his manner as sunny as his blonde hair. The petite white-haired girl complied silently, her golden eyes never leaving Issei as he settled at the table. Your energy is different today, she observed in her characteristically direct manner. More settled, less fractured. Issei nodded, serving himself grilled fish and pickled vegetables. The dreams help, I think. Each one integrates more of my Titan memories with my human consciousness. Fascinating, Rias commented, watching him with scholarly interest. Most reincarnations involve a clean slate. The soul retains its essence but begins anew without memories of past lives. Your situation appears to be a true integration of both identities. Both identities, both sets of powers, Akeno added, her analytical mind always focused on the practical implications. Speaking of which, have you had any new manifestations since yesterday's session? Issei considered the question while chewing thoughtfully. The food was excellent. Akeno's culinary skills rivaled her magical abilities. Nothing dramatic, but I'm becoming more aware of the temporal threads connecting everything. Like a web that stretches across reality, binding cause and effect. Can you manipulate these threads? Kiba asked, leaning forward with interest. Not yet. I can see them, sometimes predict where they lead, but active manipulation seems to require more power than I can currently access. Probably for the best, Rias noted dryly. Causality manipulation is typically classified as a reality-breaking ability. The sort that attracts unwanted attention from various pantheons. The conversation continued in this vein throughout breakfast, practical discussions of power manifestations, theory regarding Titan abilities, and speculation about the broader implications of his awakening. It struck Issei how quickly the extraordinary had become ordinary for this group, how casually they discussed concepts that would shatter most humans' understanding of reality. Then again, none of them were entirely human. Even before his awakening, he apparently hadn't been either. The walk to school provided a different sort of challenge. Kuo town bustled with morning activity, students heading to various schools. Adults commuting to work, shopkeepers preparing for the day's business. Each person trailing temporal threads that only Issei could see, each intersection representing decision points and probability clusters that threatened to overwhelm his perception. Focus on the physical, Rias advised quietly, noting his distraction. Ground yourself in immediate sensory input. The feeling of pavement beneath your feet, the sound of birds, the scent of morning air. He followed her suggestion, deliberately channeling his awareness into his physical senses. The technique helped, bringing the ordinary world into sharper focus while pushing the temporal web into his peripheral awareness. Better, he murmured gratefully. I'm beginning to understand why full Titans rarely walked among humans. Reality looks very different from their perspective. Different perspectives have value, she replied. That's why your dual nature may prove advantageous. You see with both Titan and human eyes. As they approached the school gates, Rias subtly increased the distance between them, not out of embarrassment but practical consideration for her status. As school idol and third-year student, her close association with a formerly unremarkable second year would spark rumors and unwanted attention. We'll reconvene at the club room after classes, she said. Sona mentioned, she's found some interesting historical references that might correlate with your dreams. With that, she glided away, immediately surrounded by admiring students drawn to her natural charisma and beauty. Issei watched her go, marveling at her effortless navigation of both human and supernatural worlds. Yo, Issei. The familiar voices of Matsuda and Motohama broke through his contemplation. His friends, his human friends, bounded toward him with their usual exuberance, unaware of the profound changes that had transformed him during their brief separation. Where've you been, man? Matsuda demanded, slinging an arm around Issei's shoulders. The rumor mill says you were at some training camp, but no way the school would waste resources on someone with your athletic abilities. Unless it was special remedial education, Motohama suggested, adjusting his glasses with a smirk. Your grades certainly qualify you for that. Their familiar banter washed over Issei like a wave of normality. These were his friends, crass, perverted, utterly ordinary human boys whose greatest concerns involved peeking into the girls' locker room and acquiring new erotic magazines. They knew nothing of Titans or devils, temporal manipulation or cosmic threats. For a moment, he envied them their simplicity. Just some personal development stuff, he replied vaguely, falling into step beside them. Family obligation. Well, you missed prime ogling opportunities, Matsuda lamented dramatically. The girls' tennis team practiced in shorts all week. Tragic, Issei agreed with a smile that felt both genuine and distant. The old Issei would have matched their enthusiastic perversion detail for detail. The new Issei, the integrated being of human and Titan, found their obsessions simultaneously endearing and oddly juvenile. Yet he played along, letting their ordinary concerns and conversation wash over him as they made their way to class. This too was part of maintaining his human identity, of grounding his consciousness in the mundane details that made up Issei Hyodo's life. Classes proceeded with surprising normalcy. Issei took notes, answered questions when called upon, and dually relaxed into the familiar routine. Occasionally, time would seem to fluctuate around him, a teacher's lecture momentarily slowing, chalk dust hanging suspended in sunbeams, but he quickly recognized the symptoms and stabilized his temporal influence before anyone noticed. At lunch, he begged off from his friend's company, claiming a need to catch up on missed assignments. In truth, he sought solitude. Finding it beneath the same oak tree where Rias had first approached him, was it really only 4 days ago? It felt like lifetimes. As he unwrapped his bento, a strange sensation prickled along his spine, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Not with ordinary human eyes, but with something older, something powerful. He scanned the school grounds, temporal perception automatically extending beyond normal sight. There, on the roof of the main building, a figure stood perfectly still, observing him with unnatural focus. Female, tall and athletic, with dark hair pulled back in a practical style. Even at this distance, he could sense divine energy radiating from her in controlled waves. Not devil, not angel, but something else entirely. Their eyes met across the distance, and cognition slammed into Issei with the force of a physical blow. Memories cascaded through his consciousness, battles that reshaped continents, strategy sessions in diamond-spurred war rooms, betrayal that shattered a cosmic dynasty. Athena, he whispered, the name emerging unbidden from the depths of his Titan memories. The figure inclined her head fractionally, acknowledgement and warning in the simple gesture. Before stepping back and vanishing from sight, Issei's appetite evaporated. An Olympian goddess, here at Kuo Academy. Observing him, making no move to attack or approach, merely watching. The implications tumbled through his mind in dizzying succession. If Athena knew of his awakening, did other Olympians as well? Was Zeus aware that the father he had overthrown and imprisoned now walked the earth in human form? And more importantly, why had she not acted? The Athena of his fragmentary memories would never have hesitated to confront a potential threat, especially one connected to Kronos. He was still pondering these questions when the warning bell rang, calling students back to afternoon classes. The rest of the school day passed in a blur of distracted attention, Hi's mind cycling through possible explanations and contingency plans. When the final bell rang, Issei made his way directly to the old school building, his stride purposeful. He found Rias alone in the club room, reviewing documents spread across her desk. "We have a situation," he announced without preamble. "I saw Athena today, here, at the school." Rias looked up sharply, alarm evident in her expression. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely." He paced the room, energy crackling around him like static electricity. "She was watching me from the main building roof during lunch, made direct eye contact, then disappeared." "Did she approach you? Threaten you?" "No. That's what's strange." He stopped pacing, turning to face her directly. "The Athena I remember, that Kronos remembers, would never simply observe a potential threat. She would act decisively, especially regarding anything connected to the Titans." Rias leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled beneath her chin in a gesture of deep contemplation. "Perhaps she's assessing the situation before reporting to Olympus. Or perhaps," she hesitated, then continued cautiously, "perhaps she has her own agenda, separate from the other Olympians." "That's possible," Issei acknowledged. "The gods were never as unified as humans believed. There were always factions, competing interests." He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "But without knowing her intentions, we're at a significant disadvantage. We'll increase security around the school perimeter," Rias decided, practical as always. Familiar scouts in rotating patterns. Additional barrier spells keyed specifically to divine energy signatures. Before Issei could respond, the club room door opened to admit Akino, Kiba, and Kaneko, followed by Sona Citri and her queen, Tsubaki Shinra. "Perfect timing," Rias greeted them. "We have new developments to discuss." As the others settled into their usual places, Issei noticed Sona carrying an ancient-looking leather portfolio. Its surface inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. "Before we begin," Sona said, adjusting her glasses with precise movements, "I've brought the historical references I mentioned. They may provide context for your dreams, Issei-kun." She opened the portfolio on the central table, revealing documents of various ages, some appearing recently printed, others on yellowed parchment. A few inscribed on what looked like thin sheets of hammered gold. All featured text in languages Issei shouldn't have been able to read, yet found perfectly comprehensible: Ancient Greek, Sumerian cuneiform, hieroglyphics predating dynastic Egypt. "These are excerpts from various supernatural archives," Sona explained, her tone scholarly and precise. "References to Titan activities and prophecies that might relate to your current situation." Issei leaned forward, drawn to a particular golden tablet inscribed with symbols that seemed to pulse with inner light. "The Dodana prophecies," he murmured, fingers hovering above the ancient metal. "I remember when these were first spoken, yet they came after my imprisonment. How is that possible?" "Time is cell, dom linear where divine beings are concerned," Sona replied. "Especially for one whose domain includes temporal manipulation." Issei translated aloud, the archaic words flowing naturally from his lips. "When thrice the cosmic wheel completes its turn, the shadow beyond shadows shall awaken. Neither god nor mortal may stand against its hunger. For it feeds on divine essence and human faith alike. Only he who was before gods, reborn through cycles of mortality, may forge the key that binds the darkness. Time's master wearing flesh as shield, harvester wielding life as sword." A heavy silence fell over the room as the translation hung in the air, pregnant with implications. "That's," Akino began, then paused, searching for appropriate words. "Rather specifically applicable to your situation. Prophecies often appear that way in retrospect," Sona cautioned. "Their wording deliberately ambiguous enough to fit multiple interpretations." "No, this one's meant for me." Issei's certainty was absolute, drawn from the Titan knowledge unfurling within his consciousness. "It's why I arranged this reincarnation. Time's master wearing flesh as shield. I needed a human form to face whatever this shadow is." "Which brings us back to our immediate concern," Rias interjected. "Issei encountered Athena today, observing him from the main school building." The announcement sent a ripple of tension through the room. Kiba's hand instinctively moved toward where he would normally carry his sword, while Kaniko's expression became even more impassive, her version of high alert. "An Olympian, here." Sona's composure cracked slightly, genuine alarm showing through her normally reserved demeanor. "Did she make any hostile moves?" "None," Issei replied. "She watched. I noticed. We made eye contact. She acknowledged me. Then departed." "That's unexpected," Tsubaki commented, speaking for the first time. "Olympic deities aren't known for their restraint when dealing with perceived threats." "Which suggests she doesn't perceive Issei as an immediate threat," Rias concluded. "Or she has reasons to observe rather than confront. Or she's reporting back to Olympus before they launch a coordinated attack," Kiba suggested pragmatically. Issei shook his head. "If Zeus knew of my awakening, he wouldn't waste time with reconnaissance. He'd strike with everything at his disposal." Another fragment of memory surfaced. "Unless the Olympians are weakened for some reason. The old power structures among the pantheons have been destabilized since the Great War between the three factions. The biblical gods' deaths certainly created power vacuums that affected all supernatural realms," Sona acknowledged. "Even pagan deities experienced diminished influence as human faith waned. So perhaps they're being cautious because they can't afford an all-out confrontation," Akino suggested. "Especially if they're uncertain about the extent of your awakening. Which gives us time to prepare," Rias said decisively. "We'll implement enhanced security measures immediately." "Sona, can the student council assist with barrier modifications?" "Of course. We'll integrate divine specif. IC detection filters into the existing framework." As the devils discussed technical security arrangements, Issei found his attention drawn back to the golden tablet. The prophecy resonated within him, confirming what he'd already begun to suspect. His reincarnation had been meticulously planned, a strategic gambit spanning millennia. Not mere chance or cosmic accident, but deliberate design. The question remained: What exactly was this shadow beyond shadows that required such extraordinary measures? Issei-kun. Akino's voice drew him back to the present moment. She stood beside him, concern evident in her violet eyes. You've gone very pale, she observed. Are you feeling unwell? He managed a weak smile. Just processing implications. The prophecy confirms what I've been suspecting, but raises more questions than it answers. Such is the nature of prophecies, she replied with gentle humor. If they were straightforward instruction manuals, they'd hardly qualify as mystical, would they? Her pragmatic perspective surprised a genuine laugh from him. Fair point. While they finalized the security details, she continued, gesturing toward Rias and Sona, who were now deeply engaged in technical discussion. Perhaps you'd join me for tea in the kitchenette. You look like you could use a moment's respite. The offer was tempting. Despite his increasing comfort with his dual nature, the day's revelations had been taxing. Lead the way. The club room's adjoining kitchenette was small but well appointed, reflecting Rias's appreciation for comfort and Akino's culinary interests. As Issei settled at the small table by the window, Akino moved with practiced efficiency, heating water and selecting tea leaves from an impressive collection stored in labeled containers. You seem surprisingly comfortable with all this, Issei observed as she prepared the tea. Finding out your club's newest associate is actually an ancient titan in human form. A smile curved her lips as she measured precise amounts of tea into a porcelain pot. After you've been a half-fallen angel trying to live as a devil for a few years, your threshold for surprising tends to rise considerably. She glanced at him over her shoulder, violet eyes sparkling with humor. Besides, your situation resonates with me. I understand what it means to have two competing natures inside you. Parallel hadn't occurred to him before, but now seemed obvious. Does it ever get easier? The integration. She considered the question as she poured steaming water over the leaves, the fragrant steam rising between them. Not easier, perhaps, but more harmonious. You learn to draw strength from both aspects of yourself rather than seeing them as contradictory. Her insight struck him as profoundly wise, especially coming from someone who appeared no older than himself. How long have you been with Rias? Since we were children, she replied, bringing the teapot and cups to the table. She found me at a difficult time in my life and offered me a place where I could belong without hiding what I am. She seems to make a habit of collecting strays, Issei observed with a small smile. Akino laughed softly. Indeed, each of us came to her broken in some way. Kiba, the sole survivor of the Holy Sword Project. Kaneko, abandoned after her sister went rogue. Myself, caught between fallen angel heritage and devil society. She poured the tea with elegant precision. And now you, perhaps the most extraordinary stray of all. I'm not sure I qualify as a stray, he demurred. Technically, I'm older than all of you combined, several times over. Age and wisdom don't always correlate, she replied, sliding the cup toward him. And your human aspect is very much a teenager, however ancient your titan essence might be. He couldn't argue with that assessment. Despite the cosmic memories unfolding within him, he still experienced very human emotions, confusion, uncertainty, and yes, typical teenage responses to beautiful women like Akino and Rias. What kind of tea is this? He asked, changing the subject as he lifted the cup to his lips. The aroma was complex, floral and earthy with subtle hints of spice. My own blend, she answered. Oolong base with chrysanthemum, ginger, and a few other ingredients that help stabilize supernatural energy. I created it specifically for you, actually. The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched him unexpectedly. Thank you for the tea, and for treating me like a person, not just a cosmic anomaly. You are a person, Issei, she said simply. Whatever else you may be as well. They drank in companionable silence for a few moments, the tea's subtle warmth spreading through Issei's system, indeed seeming to harmonize the competing energies within him. Can I ask you something personal? He ventured finally. Akino tilted her head in invitation. You may ask. I reserve the right not to answer. Fair enough. He set his cup down carefully. How do you reconcile the fallen angel part of yourself with your devil identity? Especially given what a fallen angel did to me. Her expression sobered, violet eyes momentarily shadowed. With difficulty, she admitted. For many years, I rejected that part of myself entirely, hating my father and everything connected to my fallen angel blood. She traced the rim of her teacup with one slender finger. It's only recently that I've begun to understand that embracing that aspect of my nature doesn't mean embracing the choices my father made, or the cruelty someone like Rainer exhibited. That's remarkably insightful. A smile touched her lips, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Rias has been a good influence. She sees value in what others might consider broken or tainted. Before Issei could respond, the kitchenette door opened to admit Rias herself, her expression serious but composed. Security measures have been arranged, she announced. Divine. Specific barriers will be active by nightfall. Her gaze moved between them, noting their proximity and the tea service. I hope I'm not interrupting. Just providing our Titan with energy-stabilizing tea, Akeno replied smoothly. Rising from her seat, I should check on the barrier implementation. Sona mentioned needing additional power sources for the divine filters. After she departed, Rias took the vacated seat across from Issei. Everything all right? You seemed rather affected by the prophecy. It confirmed some suspicions, he admitted. And raised new questions. But I'm managing. He gestured to his teacup. Akeno's blend helps. She has a gift for matching teas to specific needs, Rias agreed, a fond smile softening her features. She created a special blend for each member of the peerage. Issei nodded, filing away this insight into the close-knit nature of Rias's household. Have you made any decisions about how to proceed regarding Athena? Observation and preparation, for now. If she wanted immediate confrontation, she would have initiated it today. Rias reached for Akeno's abandoned teacup, turning it idly in her hands. We have more immediate concerns, actually. I received a message from the underworld during our security discussion. My brother wishes to meet you. The casual mention of her brother, Seer's ex Lucifer, one of the 4 Satans who ruled Devil Society, momentarily stunned Issei. That's significant, indeed. Apparently, the magical discharge from your awakening registered on monitoring systems throughout the supernatural world. The Satan faction is concerned. Concerned enough to eliminate a potential threat? Issei asked bluntly. Rias shook her head firmly. No, my brother isn't prone to rash actions. He wishes to assess the situation personally before the matter becomes more widely known among the devil nobility. When? Tomorrow evening. He'll come here, to minimize exposure. She hesitated, then added, there's something else. A situation that's been developing independently of your awakening, but now intersects with it in potentially problematic ways. The sudden tension in her posture alerted Issei that whatever this situation involved, it deeply affected her personally. Tell me, I'm engaged, she said flatly. To Riser Phoenix, 3rd son of the Phoenix family. An arranged marriage meant to preserve pure-blooded devil lineages. The revelation shouldn't have affected him so strongly. After all, he'd known Rias personally for less than a week, regardless of how quickly they'd bonded over extraordinary circumstances. Yet something deep within him, something that transcended both his human and Titan aspects, recoiled at the thought of her bound to another. I gather from your tone that this isn't a love match, he observed carefully. A bitter laugh escaped her. Hardly. It's purely political. The joining of 2 old devil houses to produce powerful pure-blooded offspring. Her fingers tightened around the teacup. I've been fighting the arrangement for years, but my options for honorable dissolution are running out. And my appearance complicates matters. Yes, she met his gaze directly. A Titan awakening within my territory, under my protection, it changes the political calculus considerably. Some might see you as a valuable ally, others as justification to expedite my marriage to strengthen house alliances against a potential threat. How can I help? The question emerged without conscious thought, driven by something beyond mere gratitude for her assistance or attraction to her beauty. In the few days he'd known her, Rias Gremory had shown him compassion, respect, and understanding when most would have responded with fear or hostility. Whatever complex emotions existed between them, he couldn't stand by while she was forced into an unwanted union. Surprise flickered across her features, followed by something warmer. That's kind of you to offer. But this is a devil matter, with centuries of tradition and legal precedent involved. I'm not offering out of kindness, Issei replied, surprising himself with his forthright tone. I'm offering because you matter to me. Because you've helped me when you had every reason not to. Because no one should be forced into marriage against their will, regardless of supernatural politics. A faint blush colored her cheeks. The first time he'd seen the composed devil princess show such vulnerability. There might be one option, she said after a moment's consideration. Rating games, formalized competitions between devil peerages, are recognized as legitimate means of settling disputes between houses. If I could defeat Riser in an official rating game, I could break the engagement honorably. But, my peerage is incomplete and relatively inexperienced. Riser has a full set of 15 pieces, all well trained. And while I have absolute faith in my household's abilities, the numerical disadvantage is significant. Issei considered this information, tactical assessments automatically forming in his mind, a legacy of the military genius that had allowed Kronos to rule the cosmos for eons before his fall. Would I be allowed to participate in such a game, despite not being a formal member of your peerage? Technically, yes, as someone under my protection residing in my territory, I'd be registered as an auxiliary participant. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that a Titan, even one still reawakening his full powers, might help balance the numerical disadvantage. He smiled, golden flecks brightening in his brown eyes. Besides, it would provide an excellent controlled environment to test my combat capabilities. For the first time since mentioning her engagement, Rias smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face from merely beautiful to breathtaking. It would indeed, and Riser's arrogance legendary. He'd never pass up the opportunity to publicly defeat a being from my household, regardless of the potential risk. Then it's settled, Issei declared, surprised by his own decisiveness. Challenge him to a rating game. With your freedom as the stakes. There's one complication, Rias cautioned. Riser is scheduled to visit tomorrow, the same day my brother wishes to meet you. The meeting with Searsex is private. But Riser's visit will include his entire peerage and representatives from both our families. Perfect, Issei replied, a plan already forming in his mind. We'll use both meetings to our advantage. Your brother can provide insight on the legal parameters for the rating game challenge, and Riser's visit gives us the opportunity to assess his peerage directly. Rias regarded him with newfound appreciation. You have a strategic mind. Titan of time, he reminded her with a self-deprecating smile. Military tactics tend to become second nature when you've fought cosmic wars for eons. Well, Time Titan, she said, rising from her seat with renewed energy, we should join the others. If we're going to challenge one of the underworld's most accomplished rating game participants, we'll need to begin preparations immediately. As they returned to the main club room, Issei felt an unfamiliar emotion stirring within him, anticipation. Not the nervous anticipation of his human self facing supernatural challenges, but the calculated anticipation of a strategic mind confronting a worthy problem. For the first time since his awakening, he felt his dual natures aligning toward a common purpose. Whatever cosmic threat loomed on the horizon could wait. Right now, Rias Gremory needed his help, and both Issei Hyodo and Kronos found themselves equally committed to providing it. The remainder of the evening passed in focused preparation. Heba reviewed footage of Riser's previous rating games, identifying tactical patterns and preferred strategies. Nako cataloged the known abilities of his peerage members, her terse descriptions belying a surprisingly comprehensive knowledge of potential opponents. Akano analyzed magical configurations and wire systems typical of official game environments, identifying potential advantages for temporal manipulation. Through it all, Issei absorbed information with preternatural focus, Kronos' strategic genius gradually integrating with Issei's modern perspective to formulate approaches that neither would have conceived independently. Night had fallen by the time they concluded their planning session. Rias dismissed her peerage with instructions to rest and prepare for tomorrow's important meetings. You should stay here again tonight, she told Issei as the others departed. Given Athena's appearance and tomorrow's devil visitors, it's safer within our barriers. He nodded agreement, too mentally exhausted to contemplate the trek to his human home. The day had been filled with revelations and strategic planning, leaving little energy for additional decisions. I'll see you in the morning, then, she said, gathering her notes from the planning session. Try to get some actual rest. Tomorrow will be eventful. After she departed for her private quarters elsewhere in the building, Issei made his way to the guest room that had become his temporary residence. Despite his fatigue, sleep proved elusive. His mind continued processing the day's developments, Athena's observation, the ancient prophecy, Rias's engagement, the impending meetings with Issei and Riser. When he finally drifted into slumber, his dreams were not of ancient Titan kingdoms or cosmic battlefields, but of something far more immediate and personal, a raiding game arena where he faced a smirking blonde Devi. Across a battlefield engulfed in flames. Morning arrived with gray skies and gentle rain, appropriate weather for a day of potentially momentous confrontations. Issei woke feeling surprisingly refreshed, his fragmented dreams having apparently helped integrate more of his dual nature during the night. The hourglass mark on his chest pulsed with steady golden light, neither painfully bright nor barely visible, but a consistent glow that suggested stabilizing power. Breakfast with the Occult Research Club was a subdued affair, everyone focused on the day's challenges. Rias reviewed the protocol for meeting Issei, emphasizing that while Issei was her brother, formal respect was still required from others. He's remarkably unpretentious for a Mao, she assured Issei, but certain formalities must be observed. Especially for initial introductions. Bow but don't kneel, Akeno advised practically. Address him as Lucifer-sama, until he indicates otherwise. And whatever you do, don't flare your power unless explicitly invited to demonstrate it. Issei nodded, absorbing these instructions with appropriate seriousness. And for Riser, a collection of grimaces answered this question before Rias spoke. Formal politeness is required by devil etiquette, but don't feel obligated to show deference beyond basic courtesy. He's technically my equal in status, not my superior, Despite his family's attempts to suggest otherwise. He's also insufferably arrogant, Akeno added, uncharacteristic irritation coloring her tone. And treats his peerage members as decorative accessories rather than individuals. His queen is the only real threat, Hiba contributed. The rest rely more on numbers and Riser's regenerative abilities than individual skill. Immortal, Kaneko clarified, seeing Issei's questioning look. Fennec's ability, fire and wind magic, can regenerate from almost any injury. Almost any, Rias emphasized. The Fennec's regeneration has limits, though Riser pretends otherwise. Overwhelming damage, attacks that target the soul directly, and certain holy elements can overcome it. Or temporal manipulation, Issei suggested thoughtfully. Regeneration requires time to function. If time is slowed or stopped around the wound, exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need, Rias approved with a smile. But remember, today is reconnaissance only. We observe Riser and his peerage, assess their current capabilities, and formulate our challenge only after careful consideration. After breakfast, they dispersed to prepare for the day's events. Classes were cancelled due to a conveniently scheduled teacher development day, allowing them to remain at the old school building without raising suspicions. Issei spent the morning in meditation, practicing the techniques Kaneko had taught him for stabilizing his supernatural energy. The petite rook might speak rarely, but her instruction in senjutsu fundamentals had proven invaluable for managing his fluctuating power levels. By midday, he'd achieved a state of relative equilibrium, his Titan essence and human consciousness synchronized in temporary harmony. The golden markings remained visible on his skin but no longer pulsed or shifted, suggesting improved control over his emerging abilities. A soft knock interrupted his meditation. Enter, he called, opening his eyes. Rias stepped into the room, wearing a formal crimson dress that complemented her hair perfectly. The garment was elegant rather than revealing, projecting sophisticated authority appropriate for political meetings. My brother will arrive within the hour, she informed him. I've laid out suitable attire for you in the wardrobe. Nothing too formal. Issei prefers substance over appearance, but something befitting the gravity of the meeting. Issei nodded, rising from his cross-legged position on the floor. Any last-minute advice? Be honest, she said after a moment's consideration. Issei values authenticity above most things. Don't try to downplay your nature or capabilities, he'll sense deception immediately, but emphasize your human aspect as well as your Titan essence. The balance between the two is what makes your situation unique rather than threatening. And if he determines I am a threat, Rias met his gaze steadily. Then I'll stand with you, regardless of the consequences. The CMPLE declaration carried weight far beyond its words, a devil princess pledging allegiance to a reborn titan against the ruler of her own kind. The implications were momentous, the potential consequences severe. Let's ensure it doesn't come to that, Issei replied softly. I have no intention of disrupting the current supernatural power structures. Whatever cosmic threat I've reincarnated to face, it endangers all factions equally. She nodded, seemingly satisfied with his response. I'll send Kiba to escort you when it's time. After she departed, Issei explored the wardrobe and found the clothes she'd mentioned, dark slacks, a crisp white shirt, and a charcoal blazer of excellent quality. Simple yet dignified, projecting respectful confidence without ostentation. He dressed carefully, appreciating Rias's thoughtfulness in providing attire appropriate to the occasion. His reflection in the wardrobe mirror revealed a young man who appeared ordinary at first glance, standard Japanese features, medium build, unremarkable brown hair, yet carried himself with unconscious dignity. Only the golden flecks in his eyes and the barely visible glow beneath his shirt suggested anything extraordinary about him. Kiba arrived precisely on schedule, his usual cheerful demeanor tempered by the significance of the occasion. Lucifer-sama has arrived, he announced formally. Bushu requests your presence in the main salon. Issei followed the blonde knight through corridors he hadn't previously explored, noting subtle changes in the building's architecture, doorways becoming more ornate, ceilings higher, materials shifting from ordinary wood and plaster to marble and precious metals. They were transitioning from the human world into a pocket dimension more suited to devil nobility, he realized, a space connected to but separate from the ordinary school building. The salon Kiba led him to exemplified supernatural opulence, soaring ceilings supported by columns of black marble veined with gold, walls adorned with tapestries depicting scenes from devil history, furniture crafted from woods that likely didn't exist in the human realm. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over the assembled company, who turned as one when Issei entered. Rias stood near the center of the room beside a tall man with crimson hair several shades darker than her own. Though dressed relatively simply in a dark suit, his presence dominated the space, power radiating from him in controlled waves that made the air itself seem heavier near his person. Rias Lucifer, formerly Rias Gremory, one of the four rulers of the underworld and arguably the most powerful devil in existence. Beside him stood a silver-haired woman in a maid's uniform whose modest appearance belied the extraordinary power Issei sensed within her, perhaps equal to Rias himself, though carefully contained. This, he surmised, must be Graphia Lucifuge, queen of Lucifer and legendary, strongest queen, of devil society. Akino and Kaneko stood respectfully to one side, their formal attire and composed expressions indicating their understanding of the occasion's gravity. Issei approached at a measured pace, stopping a respectful distance before executing a precise bow, not too deep, which would suggest subservience, but respectful enough to acknowledge Rias's status. Lucifer-sama, he greeted, his voice streaked. Edie despite the intimidating presence before him. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Rias studied him with penetrating blue-green eyes that seemed to see through physical appearance directly into essence. After a moment that stretched uncomfortably long, the Satan smiled, a warm, genuine expression that transformed his regal features into something almost boyish. Issei Hyodo, he replied, his voice surprisingly gentle for a being of such power. Or perhaps I should say, Kronos. The specifics of your identity seem to be the primary question before us. Both names apply, Issei answered truthfully. I am both human teenager and awakening titan, two natures gradually integrating into something new. Rias nodded, apparently satisfied with this response. Please, be seated. This conversation will be more comfortable without standing on ceremony. As everyone settled into the luxurious furniture arranged around a low table of polished obsidian, Graphia gracefully poured tea into delicate cups that appeared to be made from some iridescent material, neither porcelain nor glass. My sister has provided a preliminary report on your awakening, Rias continued once everyone was served. Most fascinating. A failed devil reincarnation that instead triggered the emergence of a titan essence lying dormant within a human form. He sipped his tea thoughtfully. Such an event has no precedent in recorded supernatural history, which naturally raises concerns about its implications, Graphia added, her voice cool and precise. Particularly given the historical relationship between Titans and other divine factions. Understandable concerns, Issei acknowledged. The Kronos of myth and history was hardly a benevolent figure by most accounts. Yet you present yourself with remarkable equanimity for a being of such complicated legacy, Sirzek observed. One might expect more disorientation, more conflict between your dual aspects. Issei considered his response carefully, aware that his answer would significantly influence the Satan's assessment of his situation. The integration isn't without challenges, he admitted. But it appears my reincarnation was deliberately designed this way, human consciousness and Titan essence gradually merging rather than one overwhelming the other. Designed by whom? Grafia inquired sharply. By myself. By K. Ronos. Before my previous incarnation ended. Issei set his teacup down, focusing fully on the conversation. My dreams and fragmentary memories suggest this reincarnation was meticulously planned, a.s. strategic response to some cosmic threat that would require both Titan power and human adaptability to confront. Sirzek leaned forward, genuine interest evident in his expression. What manner of read would necessitate such extraordinary measures? That remains unclear, Issei replied honestly. The memories return in fragments, without complete context. But references to a shadow beyond shadows appear consistently. Something that threatens all supernatural factions equally. You referenced a prophecy, Rias interjected, addressing her brother. The Dodana prophecies recovered from the Olympian archives. Sirzek nodded. Indeed, ancient predictions regarding a darkness that feeds on divine essence and human faith alike, to be confronted by Time's master wearing flesh as shield. His gaze returned to Issei. Rather specific, wouldn't you say? Prophecies often appear specific in retrospect, Issei replied, echoing Sona's earlier observation. But yes, the parallels to my situation are compelling. Which brings us to the matter at hand, Sirzek stated, setting aside his teacup. What are your intentions, Issei Hyodo? Or Kronos, if you prefer that name in this context? The directness of the question created a momentary silence in the room. Everyone present understood its significance. Issei's answer would largely determine how the Devil faction responded to his awakening. My immediate intention is to continue integrating my dual nature while developing control over my emerging abilities, he answered carefully. I have no desire to disrupt NT supernatural power structures or reignite ancient conflicts. Whatever cosmic threat prompted this reincarnation appears to endanger all factions equally. Cooperation will be essential to confronting it successfully. He paused, then added with a glance toward Rias, and in the more immediate term, I intend to support those who have shown me kindness and understanding during this transition. Sirzek followed his gaze to Rias, a knowing smile touching his lips. Ah, you've become aware of my sister's matrimonial situation, I take it. I have, and you object to this arrangement. Issei met the Satan's gaze directly. I believe forced marriages are objectionable regardless of supernatural politics. But more importantly, I believe Rias Gremory deserves the freedom to choose her own path, a freedom she's earned through her accomplishments and character. Rather than taking offense at this forthright criticism of Devil traditions, Sirzek actually chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that surprised everyone present. Well said, he approved, glancing at his sister with obvious affection. And what would you propose as an alternative to the current arrangement? A rating game, Issei replied promptly. With Rias's freedom as the stakes. An honorable resolution through established Devil customs. Interesting. Sirzek turned to Rias. Is this your intention as well, dear sister? It is, she confirmed. Her posture straight and determined. I plan to issue the challenge during Riser's visit this afternoon. Bold, Grafia commented, her neutral tone making it impossible to determine whether she approved or disapproved of the strategy. Particularly given the composition and experience of your respective peerages. We're aware of the numerical disadvantage, Rias acknowledged. But I have absolute faith in my household's abilities. Plus a Titan, Sirzek added with a raised eyebrow. Even a partially awakened one. That rather changes the conventional calculations, doesn't it? I would participate as an auxiliary member, not a formal piece, Issei clarified. Fully within the established rules for rating games. Sirzek studied him thoughtfully. for a long moment before turning back to his sister. If you formally issue this challenge and Riser accepts, I will ensure the match receives official sanction from the rating game authorities. Relief washed over Rias's features. Thank you, Oni-sama. Don't thank me yet, he cautioned. I'm merely ensuring a fair playing field, not guaranteeing victory. Riser Phoenix remains an accomplished competitor with a complete, experienced peerage. We understand the challenge, Rias assured him. But with proper preparation and strategy, I believe we can prevail. Speaking of strategy, Sirzex said, returning his attention to Issei, I would be most interested in observing a demonstration of your current abilities. Nothing elaborate, just a basic assessment of your developmental progress. The request, though phrased diplomatically, carried unmistakable weight. This was the true purpose of the meeting, evaluating whether Issei represented an asset or a threat to devil interests. Of course, he agreed. Rising from his seat, what form of demonstration would you prefer? Sirzex gestured to Graphia, who produced a small crystal cube from within her apron pocket. She placed it on the obsidian table, where it began to glow with soft blue light. This is a standard evaluation artifact, she explained. It measures magical capacity, energy type, and basic affinity patterns without requiring active power usage that might damage the surroundings. Simply place your hand upon it, Sirzex instructed. The cube will do the rest. Issei approached the table, studying the innocuous-looking crystal. Through his enhanced perception, he could see complex magical formulas swirling within its structure, devil magic primarily, but with elements drawn from other supernatural traditions. He placed his palm atop the cube, focusing on maintaining the equilibrium he'd achieved during his morning meditation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cube's blue glow shifted rapidly through the color spectrum, violet, indigo, green, yellow, orange, red, before settling on a brilliant golden hue that illuminated the entire salon with its radiance. Arcane symbols appeared within the light, projected into the air above the cube, complex formulas and equations representing Issei's power metrics. Graphia leaned forward, her composure momentarily slipping as she studied the results with evident surprise. Extraordinary, she murmured. The temporal affinity readings are beyond our measurement parameters. And the power capacity, she looked up at Sirzex. It's still increasing, Lucifer-sama. The growth curve suggests he's currently accessing less than 20% of his potential maximum. Sirzex nodded, seemingly unsurprised by this assessment. As expected for an awakening Titan essence. The question is whether the human aspect can successfully integrate with such power without being overwhelmed. That's why the awakening is gradual, Issei explained, removing his hand from the cube. The golden light dimmed but didn't extinguish entirely, the crystal continuing to pulse with subdued radiance. Each day, more of the Titan essence becomes accessible, but only as my human consciousness adapts to contain it. A sensible approach, Sirzex agreed. Though it raises the question of what happens when the integration is complete. Will Issei Hyodo still exist? Or will Kronos have essentially consumed his human host? The question struck at Issei's deepest fear, one he'd scarcely acknowledged even to himself. Would his human identity eventually disappear, subsumed by the vastly more powerful and ancient Titan consciousness? Would the boy who had lived 17 ordinary years simply cease to exist, his memories and personality mere footnotes in a cosmic being's resurrection? I don't believe that's the intended outcome, he answered slowly. The fragments I've recovered suggest this reincarnation was specifically designed to create Samet. Hing knew, neither purely Titan nor purely human, but a synthesis capable of confronting threats that neither could face alone. A reassuring theory, Sirzex replied, though his tone suggested healthy skepticism. Time will tell if it proves accurate. Speaking of time, Graphia interjected with practiced diplomacy. Riser Phoenix and his entourage are scheduled to arrive in approximately 1 hour. We should conclude our current discussion to allow for appropriate preparations. Sirzex nodded agreement. Indeed, he rose from his seat, prompting everyone else to stand as well. Issei Hyodo, I thank you for your candor during our conversation. Based on my assessment, I see no immediate reason to view your awakening as hostile to devil interests, quite the contrary, in fact. Thank you, Lucifer-sama. Issei replied with a respectful bow. That said, the Satan continued, his tone growing more serious, your situation will require ongoing monitoring. Graphia will install special IZED equipment in this building to track your power development and alert us to any concerning fluctuations. The stipulation was reasonable, far more reasonable than Issei had anticipated. I have no objections. Monitoring benefits everyone's safety, including my own. Excellent. Sirzek's turned to his sister. Rias, a word in private before I depart. As they stepped aside for a sibling seat. Onferen's too quiet for others to overhear, Graphia approached Issei directly. The monitoring equipment serves another purpose, she informed him, her voice pitched for his ears alone. It will also detect and record any interventions from other supernatural factions, particularly Olympian incursions. Issei nodded, understanding the implication. You know about Athena's appearance yesterday. We maintain comprehensive awareness of divine movements near devil territories, she confirmed. Her observation without direct intervention is unusual. We would appreciate being informed of any further contact. Of course. Their conversation ended as Sirzek and Rias rejoined the group. Whatever they had discussed privately had left Rias looking simultaneously determined and concerned, an intriguing combination that piqued Issei's curiosity. Until we meet again, Sirzek said, addressing the room at large. I wish you all good fortune in your upcoming challenge. With that, he and Graphia departed through a teleportation circle that materialized beneath their feet, leaving behind only a lingering sensation of extraordinary power. As the magical residue faded, Rias released a long breath. That went better than I anticipated. Your brother seems remarkably reasonable for a Satan, Issei observed. Sirzek has always valued substance over tradition, she replied with evident pride. It's what makes him an effective leader in changing times. She glanced at the ornate clock on the salon wall. We should prepare for Riser's arrival. Unlike my brother, he values spectacle and will certainly make a dramatic entrance. Dramatic and obnoxious, Akino added with uncharacteristic sharpness. Be prepared for posturing, Issei-kun. They spent the next hour making preparations, not just logistical arrangements for receiving guests, but strategic positioning and contingency plans in case Riser reacted violently to their intended challenge. Heba discreetly positioned several sword-bearing magical circles around the club room for quick access to his weapons. Kaneko arranged furniture to provide tactical advantages if physical confrontation erupted. Akino prepared defensive barrier components that could be activated with minimal gestures. Issei observed these preparations with growing appreciation for the Occult Research Club's practical approach to supernatural politics. Despite their youth by devil standards, they operated with professional efficiency that would have impressed even Kronos' ancient generals. As the appointed hour approached, they gathered in the main club room, now restored to its ordinary appearance rather than the dimensional salon where they'd met Sirzek. Rias sat behind her desk, projecting calm authority, while the others wound themselves casually around the room in what appeared relaxed but was actually carefully calculated formation. Precisely on schedule, a blazing magical circle appeared in the center of the room. RNATE and ostentatious compared to the clean, efficient teleportation Sirzek had used. Flames erupted from the circle's perimeter, licking harmlessly at the ceiling and furniture in a display of power that seemed more theatrical than practical. From within this pyrotechnic spectacle emerged a group of 16 devils, 15 young women in various maid-inspired outfits surrounding a single male figure. The women ranged from apparent children to mature adults, each beautiful in distinctly different ways, their expressions uniformly submissive and adoring as they gazed at their master. At a master he appeared determined to be tall, handsome in a conventionally attractive way, with swept-back blonde hair and blue eyes that might have been appealing if not for the arrogant disdain that filled them. His burgundy suit was obviously expensive, tailored to emphasize broad shoulders and a narrow waist, the overall effect clearly designed to impress. My lovely Rias, he greeted, his voice cultured yet somehow grating. Your beauty continues to take my breath away, even in this dreary human setting. Riser Phoenix had arrived, every bit as insufferable as advertised. Rias rose from her desk with graceful dignity. Her expression professionally pleasant though her eyes remained cool. Riser, punctual as always. The formal minimalism of her greeting, no honorific, no warm welcome, clearly irritated him. Though he masked it quickly with a practiced smile. Such charming reserve, he commented, advancing into the room with unconscious swagger. But soon enough, you'll greet me with proper wifely enthusiasm. His gaze swept the room, cataloging each person present with dismissive assessment until it reached Issei. There, it paused, narrowing slightly in confusion. You've acquired a new servant? He inquired, studying Issei with growing perplexity. I don't recognize his energy signature. Not a devil, certainly. Not a servant, Rias corrected smoothly. Issei Hu. Do is an honored guest under my protection, currently residing in my territory by mutual agreement. Riser's confusion deepened. What manner of creature merits such consideration? He appears utterly ordinary. Before Rias could respond, Issei stepped forward, meeting the devil's condescending gaze directly. Appearances can be deceptive, he observed mildly. As I'm sure you're aware, Phoenix-san. Something in his tone. Perhaps the lack of deference, perhaps the subtle emphasis on appearances, pricked Riser's pride. His pleasant expression slipped momentarily, revealing irritation beneath. Bold words from an unknown entity. He replied coldly. You stand in the presence of Riser Phoenix, third son of the illustrious House Phoenix, undefeated champion of raiding games, and future husband of Rias Gremory. Future husband, Issei echoed, maintaining a tone of polite inquiry despite the surge of annoyance the claim provoked. I was under the impression that arrangement remained subject to certain conditions. Riser laughed, a sharp, unpleasant sound devoid of genuine humor. Merely formalities. The contract is binding, the family's in agreement. He turned to Rias, his expression softening into something intended to be charming but achieving only calculated possession. I've come today to finalize the ceremony details. My parents thought a summer wedding would be appropriate. The gardens at the Phoenix estate are particularly magnificent then. How thoughtful, Rias replied, her tone suggesting exactly the opposite. However, before we discuss any details, there's an important matter to address. She straightened, power briefly flaring around her in crimson waves. I wish to formally challenge you to a raiding game, with the engagement contract as stakes. The declaration hung in the air like a thunderclap, momentarily silencing even Riser's peerage members who had been whispering among themselves. Issei observed their reactions carefully, noting which ones appear concerned versus those who remained confidently dismissive, valuable intelligence for the coming confrontation. Riser's expression cycled rapidly through surprise, anger, and finally smug amusement. A raiding game, my dear Rias. While I appreciate your spirited nature, surely you recognize the imbalance in our respective forces. His gesture encompassed his full peerage, 15 members versus Rias's 4, plus Issei as auxiliary. The numerical disadvantage was undeniable. Numbers aren't everything in a raiding game, Rias countered smoothly. Quality often trumps quantity. Perhaps, Riser conceded with a patronizing smile. But I possess both. My peerage is not only complete but extensively experienced in official competitions. His gaze swept dismissively over Kiba, Kaneko, and Akano before returning to Rias. Your little household, while charming, hardly constitutes serious opposition. Throughout this exchange, Issei had been quietly assessing Riser's peerage, reading their temporal threads. Analyzing power signatures, identifying potential weaknesses. Most were indeed as Kiba had described, decorative rather than formidable, chosen more for appearance than combat effectiveness. But several radiated genuine power, particularly the mature woman standing directly behind Riser, his queen, presumably. Are you refusing the challenge? Issei inquired, his tone mild but carrying unexpected authority. That would be unfortunate. Riser's attention snapped back to him, irritation evident. And what business is this of yours, whatever you are? As someone under Rias Sama's protection, I have a vested interest in her well-being, Issei replied, including her freedom to choose her own future. The formal honorific attached to Rias's name was deliberate, estabilis. Hing both respect for her and his own position as someone who recognized her status. The subtle political maneuvering wasn't lost on Riser, whose expression darkened momentarily before resettling into calculated affability. Your concern is noted but unnecessary, he said dismissively. This arranged marriage benefits both our houses and ensures the continuation of pure-blooded devil lineages, am. Adder of some importance given the decimation of our population during the Great War. Perpetuating bloodlines hardly requires loveless political unions, Issei countered. particularly when one participant clearly objects to the arrangement. Riser's pleasant facade cracked slightly. You speak with remarkable presumption for a guest in devil affairs. Perhaps you should identify yourself prope. RLY before continuing to offer opinions on matters beyond your understanding. The challenge was direct now, no longer merely dismissive but actively confrontational. Issei sensed Rias tensing, prepared to intervene. But he raised a hand slightly to indicate he would handle the situation. My identity is somewhat complex, he admitted with calculated understatement. But since you ask directly, I am Issei Hyodo, currently hosting the awakening essence of Chronos, Titan of Time. The announcement landed like a bomb in the middle of the room. Riser physically recoiled, disbelief and shock warring on his features. His peerage members displayed various reactions ranging from confusion to outright fear, several of the younger ones instinctively moving closer together for protection. Impossible, Riser finally managed. His composure thoroughly shattered. The Titans were sealed away eons ago, their essence scattered beyond recovery. Apparently not completely, Issei replied mildly. Though I assure you, I harbor no ill intentions toward Devil Society. My current focus is simply supporting those who've shown me kindness during my awakening, including Rias Gremory. Riser's shock gradually transformed into calculation as he reassessed the situation. Even if your claim is true, which remains to be verified, it changes nothing regarding the engagement. House agreements supersede individual preferences in Devil Society, regardless of what allies one might acquire. Which is precisely why I've proposed a rating game, Rias interjected smoothly, reasserting control of the conversation. A recognized, legitimate means of resolving such disputes within our traditions. Riser's eyes narrowed as he evaluated this challenge in light of the new information. Issei could almost see the calculations running behind those blue eyes, weighing the risk of facing a partially awakened Titan against the humiliation of refusing a direct challenge. Very well, he decided finally, pride evidently winning over caution. I accept your challenge, Rias Gremory. Let a rating game determine whether you gain your freedom or fulfill your contractual obligations. Relief flashed briefly across Rias's features before she masked it with professional composure. Excellent. As the challenged party, you have the right to set the date, within reasonable parameters, of course. 10 days from today, Riser declared after brief consideration. Sufficient time for formal arrangements while preventing unnecessary delays. 10 days. Less preparation time than they'd hoped for, but not unreasonable. Issei exchanged quick glances with Akeno and Kiba, noting their subtle nods of acceptance. Agreed, Rias confirmed. Standard rating game rules, with the engagement contract as stakes, my freedom if I win. Immediate marriage if you prevail. With one stipulation, Riser added, his gaze fixing on Issei. Your Titan participates as a formal auxiliary, subject to all standard restrictions. With no special accommodations for his unique nature. Acceptable, Rias agreed before Issei could respond. We seek no unfair advantages, merely the opportunity to compete honorably. Rise. R smiled, a calculated expression that didn't reach his eyes. Then we have an agreement. In 10 days, this charming rebellion ends, and you take your proper place as my bride. Or I secure my freedom permanently, Rias countered smoothly. Let's not presume outcomes prematurely. Indeed, Riser's attention returned to Issei, studying him with new intensity. I look forward to testing the capabilities of a self-proclaimed Titan. Assuming, of course, your claims aren't merely elaborate deception. Issei met his gaze calmly, allowing just a hint of golden light to flicker in his eyes, not an overt power display that might violate hospitality protocols, but enough to reinforce his stated identity. Skepticism is natural, he acknowledged. The rating game will provide ample opportunity for demonstration. So it will. Riser turned back to Rias, executing an elaborate bow that somehow managed to appear simultaneously courteous and condescending. Until then, my dear fiancé, I take my leave. There are preparations to make, arrangements to finalize. With that, he gestured to his peerage members, who obediently gathered around him as another flaming teleportation circle formed beneath their feet. In a final flash of unnecessarily dramatic fire, they vanished, leaving behind only the lingering scent of smoke and expensive cologne. As their presence faded, tension visibly drained from the room. Hiba released a breath he'd apparently been holding, while Kaniko's rigid posture relaxed fractionally. Akino moved immediately to Rias's side, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. "Well," Rias said after a moment's silence, "that's done. We have our rating game. And 10 days to prepare," Akino added pragmatically. "Less time than ideal, but workable." He was rattled by Issei's revelation. Hiba observed with a small smile. "I've never seen Riser lose composure so completely, even momentarily." "Tactical advantage," Kaniko noted tersely. "Fear makes mistakes." Issei nodded agreement with this assessment. He'll research Titans extensively now, trying to prepare countermeasures. But theoretical knowledge won't help against abilities he's never actually encountered. "Which gives us our training focus for the next 10 days, Rias concluded, new determination evident in her posture. "Developing unpredictable tactical applications of your temporal abilities, Issei, combined with specialized coordination with each peerage member." As they began discussing specific training regimens and practice schedules, Issei found himself experiencing an unexpected emotion: anticipation. Not the nervous anticipation of his human self facing supernatural challenges, but the calculated anticipation of a strategic mind confronting a worthy problem. For the first time since his awakening, he felt his dual natures truly aligning toward a common purpose. Issei Hyodo wanted to help the beautiful, kind devil who had saved his life and accepted his strange dual nature. Kronos, Titan of Time, approved of testing his reawakening powers in controlled combat conditions. Together, they would prepare for this rating game with every resource at their disposal. And when the day came, Riser Phoenix would discover firsthand why even gods had feared to face the Lord of Time in battle. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Titan's Shadow. Dawn painted Kuo Academy in shades of amber and gold, the empty grounds shrouded in early morning mist that clung to ancient trees and modern buildings alike. In this liminal hour, too late for night creatures, too early for human stud. Hence, Issei Hyodo stood alone atop the school's main building, eyes closed, breathing measured and deliberate. Golden light pulsed beneath his skin in steady rhythm, illuminating intricate patterns that had become more defined with each passing day. No longer just the hourglass mark on his chest, the symbols now formed complex constellations across his torso, shoulders, and upper arms, ancient Tanic script telling the story of a being who had existed before gods drew breath. 10 days until the rating game. 10 days to master abilities that had once reshaped reality itself. Issei extended his hand, focusing on a fallen leaf spiraling lazily through the morning air. The world around him slowed, colors deepening as time's flow decreased to a fraction of its normal pace. The leaf now drifted with glacial deliberation, each rotation taking seconds instead of milliseconds. Good, but not enough. He pushed harder, channeling more of the awakening power within him. The leaf stopped entirely, suspended in perfect stillness approximately 3 feet above the rooftop. Other objects nearby, dust motes, a discarded candy wrapper, even tiny droplets of morning dew, similarly froze in their trajectories. But beyond the 10-foot radius of his influence, time continued its relentless march. Birds flew in the distance, clouds drifted overhead, the sun inched above the horizon. Localized temporal stasis, a woman's voice observed from behind him. Impressive for one so recently awakened, but still far from what you once commanded. Issei didn't turn immediately. He recognized the Voic from memories that weren't entirely his own. Cool, measured, precisely articulated, with the faintest hint of an accent that predated modern language classifications. Athena, he acknowledged, care, fully releasing his hold on the temporal field. The leaf resumed its descent, landing silently on the rooftop alongside the other previously suspended objects. Only then did he turn to face his visitor. She stood at the roof's edge, dawn light illuminating features that perfectly balanced intimidating beauty with intellectual intensity. Tall and athletic, with dark hair pulled back in a practical style that emphasized striking gray eyes that seemed to contain storm clouds. She wore modern clothing, dark jeans, boots, and a tailored blazer over a white blouse, yet carried herself with the unmistakable authority of an immortal being accustomed to worship. "You recognized me immediately," she noted, studying him with analytical precision. "How much do you remember, Kronos? Or do you prefer Issei Hyodo now?" "Both names apply," he replied, matching her formal tone. My memories return in fragments, enough to recognize you, not enough to reconstruct our complete history. Convenient, she observed, taking a measured step forward. Especially the selective amnesia regarding your less admirable exploits. If you're referring to consuming my children to prevent prophecy, imprisoning other titans who opposed me, or various cosmic atrocities attributed to my original incarnation, yes, those memories have returned. Issei met her gaze steadily. Along with the understanding that history is written by victors, and myths distorted through millennia of retelling. A faint smile touched her lips. Still silver-tongued, I see. Some traits transcend reincarnation. Why are you here, Athena? Observation clearly wasn't your only purpose. She circled him slowly, maintaining a careful distance while studying the glowing markings on his exposed skin. Confirmation, initially. Morse reached Olympus of temporal disturbances in this region, signature energy patterns consistent with titanic manifestation. Most dismissed them as anomalous readings or interference from other pantheons. I suspected otherwise. And now that you've confirmed my awakening, will Zeus arrive next, thunderbolts blazing? Her expression remained carefully neutral. Zeus doesn't know. The admission surprised him. The goddess of wisdom, keeping secrets from the king of Olympus. Intriguing. The Olympian hierarchy isn't what it once was, she replied, a hint of bitterness coloring her tone. Quote, the great war between the biblical factions damaged all pantheons, diluting divine power as human faith waned. Zeus spends more time chasing nymphs than attending to cosmic governance. So you act independently. I act pragmatically. She stopped her circling, facing him directly. The question isn't why I'm here, but why you are. What purpose drives this carefully constructed reincarnation? What game are you playing, Time Lord? The formal title, one rarely used even in the height of his original reign, indicated just how seriously she took his return. Despite her composed exterior, Athena was wary, perhaps even afraid. The realization was both gratifying and somewhat troubling to Issei's human sensibilities. Not a game, he assured her. A necessity. Explain. He considered how much to reveal, weighing strategic advantage against potential alliance. Something approaches, a threat beyond conventional supernatural classification. My fragmentary memories suggest it predates even the Titans. Dormant for eons but now stirring. The shadow beyond shadows, Athena murmured, her expression momentarily distant. The Dodana prophecies. You're familiar with them. I am the goddess of wisdom. She replied with a hint of asperity. My domains include foresight and strategic knowledge. Of course I've studied all major prophecies, particularly those concerning cosmic-level threats. Issei nodded, acknowledging the mild rebuke. Then you understand why my return was necessary. Necessary, perhaps. But in this form, her gaze swept over his obviously teenage body with skepticism. A human vessel for titanic essence seems inefficient. On the contrary, he countered. Human adaptability combined with Titan power creates possibilities unavailable to pure divine beings. The prophecy specifically mentions Time's master wearing flesh as shield, suggesting this form is essential to confronting whatever approaches. Athena's eyes narrowed thoughtfully, an interesting interpretation. However, prophecies are notoriously subject to motivated reasoning. Your former self was hardly known for selfless cosmic protection. People change, even immortals. So it seems. She studied him with renewed intensity. You're different, not just the human form, but something fundamental. The Kronos I remember would never have stood calmly conversing with an Olympian. He would have attacked immediately or launched into grand declarations of vengeance. Perhaps I've learned from past mistakes, Issei suggested. Or perhaps the human aspect tempers the more extreme titanic impulses. Perhaps, she conceded, though her tone suggested ongoing skepticism. Which leads to my actual purpose here. From within her blazer, she produced a small crystal sphere that pulsed with soft blue light. This contains a fragment of divine essence, specifically, a portion of my own power condensed into usable form. I'm offering it to you. Issei stared at the object with undisguised surprise. Why would you strengthen a being your pantheon once imprisoned? Because if your interpretation of the prophecy is correct, and something truly threatens all supernatural factions. Pragmatism dictates preparation rather than traditional enmity. She held the sphere toward him. Consider it an investment in mutual survival. He made no move to accept the offering. And conditions attached to this generous gift. A fleeting smile acknowledged his perspicacity. 3 stipulations. First, you will maintain regular communication with me regarding your awakening prog. Res and any recovered memories pertaining to this shadow threat. Reasonable, he conceded. Second, you will refrain from hostile action against Olympian interests unless directly threatened. Also reasonable, if somewhat open to interpretation. And third, you will submit to periodic evaluation to ensure your human aspect remains dominant over the titanic essence. Her expression hardened slightly. If the balance shifts too far toward the original Kronos, particularly his more destructive inclinations, I reserve the right to intervene. The last condition carried clear threat beneath its diplomatic phrasing. Athena was offering conditional alliance, not unconditional support. These terms seem acceptable, Issei acknowledged after brief consideration. Though I'd add a reciprocal condition. You will share any information Olympus possesses regarding the prophesied threat. Agreed. She extended the crystal sphere once more. Then we have an arrangement. This time, he accepted the offering. The moment his fingers closed around the crystal, it dissolved into particles of blue light that swirled around his hand before sinking beneath his skin. Warmth spread up his arm and through his body. Divine energy interacting with his awakening Titan essence in complex patterns. The golden markings on his skin briefly glowed brighter, then shifted subtly, incorporating elements that resembled owl motifs interwoven with the existing temporal symbols. Interesting reaction, Athena observed, watching the transformation with scholarly interest. Your essence appears to be assimilating my divine power rather than simply containing it. Such integration shouldn't be possible between Titanic and Olympian energies. Another advantage of the human element, Issei suggested as the sensation of warmth faded, leaving behind a new awareness of potential abilities. Mortals lack the rigid metaphysical classifications that separate divine beings. A hypothesis worth exploring, she acknowledged. I'll be monitoring the results carefully. With that pragmatic statement, she turned toward the roof's edge. One final observation. Issei Hyodo, or Kronos, if you prefer. You've aligned yourself with devils, specifically the Gremory heiress. An interesting choice for one who once ruled pantheons. Rias Gremory saved my life and accepted my dual nature without fear or prejudice, he replied simply. Such actions merit loyalty regardless of supernatural classification. Loyalty, Athena repeated, as if testing an unfamiliar concept. Not a trait I recall from your original incarnation. Perhaps there's hope for this experiment after all. She stepped off the roof's edge, but instead of falling, transformed mid-motion into a great horned owl that soared away into the brightening sky. Issei watched until she disappeared from view, contemplating the implications of this unexpected alliance. Athena's involvement complicated an already complex situation, introducing Olympian interests into what had previously been primarily devil territory. Yet her divine essence gift offered significant advantages, accelerating his awakening process while potentially providing abilities that complemented his temporal powers. The tactical benefits outweighed the political complications, particularly with the raiding game approaching. The sun had fully risen by the time he departed the rooftop. Making his way toward the old school building where Rias and the others would soon gather for morning training. His mind categorized and analyzed the encounter with Athena, developing contingency plans for various scenarios that might emerge from this new alliance. So focused was he on these strategic considerations that he almost missed the figure waiting in the shadow of an ancient oak tree, the same tree where Rias had first approached him, seemingly a lifetime ago. Foo. Having clandestine rooftop meetings already. You work quickly, Issei-kun. Akano emerged from the shadows. Her Kuo Academy uniform immaculate despite the early hour, violet eyes sparkling with mischief. You saw, he concluded, neither confirming nor denying her teasing implication. I felt, she corrected, falling into step beside him. Divine energy signatures are distinctive, particularly when they flare as impressively as yours just did. Though I couldn't identify the specific deity involved. Athena, he supplied, seeing no reason for secrecy with a trusted ally. She offered conditional alliance against the prophesied threat, along with a fragment of her divine essence to accelerate my awakening. Quote, Akano's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. Olympian cooperation. That's unprecedented in recent supernatural history. What were her conditions? As they walked toward the old school building, Issei summarized his conversation with the wisdom goddess, including the stipulations attached to her assistance. Akeno listened attentively, her playful demeanor temporarily replaced by the serious tactician that lurked beneath her teasing exterior. Reasonable terms, considering traditional Olympian arrogance, she concluded when he finished. Though her interest in maintaining your human dominance bears watching. Divine beings rarely act without multiple motives. Agreed, Issei said, impressed by her immediate grasp of the political nuances. But the tactical advantages outweigh the potential complications, especially with the rating game approaching. Speaking of which, Akeno's expression brightened as they reached the old school building's entrance. We have intensive training planned for you today, now that we've established your baseline capabilities. Rias is particularly eager to see how your temporal manipulation might synergize with each peerage member's abilities. The club room had been transformed since yesterday's confrontation with Riser. Furniture had been pushed against walls, creating an open central space covered with training mats. Complex magical circles inscribed on the floor pulsed with contained power, barrier systems designed to prevent collateral damage during supernatural practice sessions. Rias stood at the center of this transformed space, consulting a notebook filled with diagrams and training schedules. She looked up as they entered, a smile brightening her features. "Good morning," she greeted, setting aside her notes. "You're both early." Issei had an interesting visitor, Akeno informed her, settling gracefully onto one of the few remaining chairs. Olympian royalty, no less. Rias's expression sharpened with immediate concern. "Zeus, Athena," Issei corrected, briefly summarizing the encounter once more. By the time he finished, Kiba and Kaneko had arrived, receiving abrevia. TED versions of the same information as they prepared for the day's training. Divine essence gifts are significant, Rias noted thoughtfully after absorbing the details. Particularly from a strategic deity like Athena. "How do you feel? Any noticeable changes in your abilities?" Issei considered the question, conducting a quick internal inventory. "The energy integration is still in progress, but I sense expanded possibilities. As if certain pathways have been unlocked that were previously inaccessible. We should test these new parameters immediately," Kiba suggested with characterist. "I see enthusiasm for training opportunities, particularly if they might provide advantages in the rating game." Agreed, Rias decided. "Let's begin with basic power assessments, then progress to tactical applications." What followed was 3 hours of intensive training that pushed Issei's developing abilities to their limits and beyond. They discovered that while his fundamental temporal powers remained unchanged, Athena's essence had enhanced his strategic perception, allowing him to visualize optimal outcomes with preternatural clarity and anticipate opponents' movements several steps in advance. "It's like combat precognition," Kiba observed after Issei perfectly countered a series of sword strikes that should have been too fast for human reflexes. But not based on sensing killing intent or reading muscle movements, more like calculating probability paths. Goddess of strategic warfare, Kaneko noted tersely from where she observed the sparring session. "Makes sense." Further experimentation revealed additional synergies between Issei's temporal abilities and each peerage member's powers. With Akeno, he could create pockets of accelerated time that intensified her lightning attacks, concentrating their destructive potential into microseconds of overwhelming force. With Kiba, he could establish temporal fields that enhanced the knight's already impressive speed to nearly untraceable levels. Even Kaneko's rook-enhanced strength benefited from carefully applied time manipulation, allowing her to deliver impacts with the momentum of much larger objects. Most significantly, they discovered that Issei could temporarily share his perception of temporal threads with others through direct physical contact, enabling them to see potential futures and adjust their actions accordingly. "This is extraordinary," Rias commented after experiencing this shared perception firsthand, her fingers still intertwined with Issei's as the expanded awareness gradually faded. "The tactical applications are tremendous, particularly in a rating game environment where split-second decisions often determine outcomes. The effect appears limited to approximately 30 seconds of shared perception," Akeno noted. Having timed the previous demonstrations, but strategically deployed at crucial moments, that could prove decisive. As the morning training session concluded, Rias gathered them for tactical discussion. Her expression serious but optimistic. We've made excellent progress, but 9 days remain before the raiding game. We need to establish a formal training schedule that maximizes our preparation time while preventing exhaustion. The resulting plan divided each day into specialized segments, morning sessions focused on individual power development, afternoons dedicated to pair and group tactical coordination, evenings reserved for strategic planning and theoretical preparation. Additionally, Rias continued, I've arranged for us to use a dimensional training space for the 3 days immediately preceding the match. Time flows differently there. 3 days inside equals approximately 12 hours in the normal world. The Gremory family training dimension? Akino inquired with raised eyebrows. Your brother approved its use. He did, Rias confirmed with a small smile. Apparently, he finds our challenge refreshingly bold, and wishes to ensure we have every legitimate advantage. Riser will be furious if he discovers this, Kiba observed, though his tone suggested this consequence was more feature than bug. The dimensional training space is a recognized resource available to all high-ranking devil families, Rias replied with perfect political correctness. Should Riser wish to avail himself of similar facilities, he's certainly entitled to do so. Her innocent expression couldn't quite hide the strategic satisfaction beneath. This was a chess match played on multiple levels, the obvious rating game itself, and the less visible maneuvering for advantageous preparation conditions. As the others dispersed for a brief lunch break before afternoon training, Rias approached Issei directly, her manner shifting from group leader to something more personal. Walk with me, she suggested, gesturing toward the door. They strolled through the old school building's quiet corridors, sunlight streaming through Victorian windows to see geometric patterns across polished wooden floors. Neither spoke immediately, enjoying the momentary respite from training intensity. How are you really feeling about all this? Rias finally asked, breaking the companionable silence. Athena's intervention, the accelerated awakening, the approaching raiding game, it's a tremendous amount to process, especially for the human aspect of your nature. The question touched Issei unexpectedly. Most interactions since his awakening had focused on tactical considerations, power development, or cosmic implications. Few had addressed the personal experience of his transformation. It's complicated, he admitted, searching for words to describe his internal landscape. There's a strange duality to everything I experience now. The human part of me, Issei Hyodo, ordinary teenager, feels overwhelmed, terrified of failing, worried about disappointing everyone who's placed their trust in me. They reached a bay window overlooking the school grounds, where students could be seen gathering for lunch beneath cherry trees still carrying the last of their spring blossoms. Issei paused, watching these ordinary young people living their ordinary lives with a curious mixture of detachment and longing. And the Titan part? Rias prompted gently, calculating, patient, absolutely certain of eventual victory because time itself is my domain, and in the longest game, I never lose. He turned from the window to face her directly. But there's a third perspective emerging, neither fully human nor fully Titan, but something new. A synthesis that sees value in both mortal connection and cosmic power. That synthesis is what makes you unique, she observed, reaching out to touch the golden markings visible at his collar, her fingers warm against his skin. Neither purely divine nor purely mortal, but something with the potential to transcend both limitations. The simple contact sent awareness cascading through him, not just physical attraction. Though that certainly existed, but deeper recognition of connection that transcended conventional categories. In that moment, he understood with perfect clarity that whatever he was becoming, Rias Gremory had become essential to that transformation. I won't fail you, he promised, covering her hand with his own. In the raiding game or beyond. Something in her expression softened, vulnerability briefly visible beneath her composed exterior. I know, she replied simply. But my concern isn't for the outcome of the match. It's for you, for the toll this accelerated awakening might take on your essential self. Before he could respond, a subtle shift in the building's ambient energy signaled the return of the others from their lunch break. The moment of personal connection seated as leadership responsibilities reasserted themselves. We should join them, Rias said, withdrawing her hand with visible reluctance. Afternoon training focuses on group tactics. The remainder of the day passed in intensive practice sessions, each designed to maximize the unique combinations possible between Issei's temporal abilities and the peerage members' specialized powers. By evening, they had developed preliminary strategies for various rating game scenarios, though much refinement remained necessary. As twilight descended, Rias dismissed everyone with instructions to rest and recover for tomorrow's continuation. But when Issei prepared to return to his temporary quarters in the guest room, Akeno intercepted him in the corridor. "A moment of your time," she requested, our usual playful demeanor replaced by something more serious. "There's something I'd like to discuss privately." Curious, he followed her to the building's small courtyard garden, where stone benches surrounded a traditional Japanese arrangement of rocks and carefully pruned plants. The setting sun painted everything in warm copper tones, creating an atmosphere of tranquil intimacy. "I've been analyzing your energy patterns during training," Akeno began without preamble, settling onto one of the benches. "Particularly the integration of Athena's divine essence with your Titan nature." Issei sat beside her, giving her his full attention. "And the process isn't proceeding as smoothly as you might believe." Her violet eyes held genuine concern. "Divine and titanic energies are fundamentally incompatible, like oil and water. They can be forced to mix temporarily but naturally separate over time. Yet they appear to be integrating within me," he observed. "Appearing is the operative word," she countered. "What's actually happening is more complex. Your human nature is acting as an emulsifier, a binding agent that temporarily allows these incompatible energies to coexist. But the strain on your mortal aspect is considerable and increasing." The assessment matched subtle sensations he'd been experiencing throughout the afternoon, occasional dissonance between his Titan essence and the new divine energy. Momentary spikes of discomfort when accessing certain abilities. "What do you suggest?" he asked, recognizing her expertise in supernatural energy dynamics. "I may be able to help," she replied, a hint of hesitation entering her voice. "As someone with mixed heritage myself, half fallen angel, half human, I understand the challenges of integrating disparate supernatural energies. My senjutsu training provides techniques for harmonizing such conflicting forces. I'd appreciate any assistance," Issei said sincerely. This dissonance could become problematic during the rating game if left unaddressed. Akeno nodded, seeming to come to a decision. "The process requires direct energy manipulation, physical contact in a controlled ritual setting." A faint blush colored her cheeks. "It's somewhat intimate." "I trust you completely," he assured her, understanding her hesitation. "Whatever is necessary." Her expression softened with evident relief. "Thank you. I've prepared a space in the Eastern meditation room. If you're not too exhausted from today's training, we could begin tonight." "Now is perfect," he agreed, rising from the bench. "Lead the way." The Eastern meditation room proved to be a small, traditional Japanese space with tatami floors, sliding paper doors, and minimal furnishings. Candles provided the only illumination, their flames perfectly still in the motionless air. In the room's center, a circular design had been inscribed on the floor with what appeared to be salt, silver dust, and crushed herbs. "The ritual circle stabilizes energy flow and prevents feedback loops," Akeno explained, closing the doors behind them. "Please sit in the center." As Issei complied, settling cross-legged within the circle, Akeno moved to a SMALL cabinet and removed her Kuo Academy uniform jacket and tie. The white blouse beneath remained entirely proper, yet the simple act of removing the outer layers seemed to transform her demeanor, from schoolgirl to priestess. From teenager to something far more ancient and knowing. "I learned these techniques from my mother," she explained, retrieving several small bottles from the cabinet. "She was a Shinto priestess before meeting my father. These methods predate modern supernatural classifications. They recognize that all energy, regardless of source, can be harmonized through proper understanding." She knelt behind Issei, her voice taking on a rhythmic quality that seemed to resonate with the room itself. "Please remove your shirt. I need direct access to the markings." He complied, setting aside his training clothes to reveal the golden symbols that now covered much of his upper body. In the candlelight, they pulsed with subtle luminescence, the newer patterns influenced by Athena's essence visibly distinct from the original titanic markings. "Beautiful," Akeno murmured, her breath warm against his shoulder as she leaned closer to examine the patterns. Like constellations mapped across human form. From one of the small bottles, she poured fragrant oil into her palm, warming it between her hands before placing them directly against his back. The contact sent immediate sensations cascading through his system: warmth, energy, awareness of connection that transcended physical touch. "Breathe with me," she instructed, her voice low and melodious near his ear. "Inhale for 7 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 7. As they synchronized their breathing, her hands began moving across his back in precise patterns that seemed to follow the flow of energy beneath his skin. Where her fingers traced golden markings, the symbols brightened momentarily before settling into more stable luminescence. "Your energy is extraordinary," she observed, continuing the methodical movements. "Most supernatural beings have distinct signatures. Devils feel like heat and ambition, angels like light and certainty, yokai like wild nature and ancient earth. But yours, what does it feel like?" he asked, genuinely curious about her perception. Her hands paused momentarily on his shoulders. "Like standing at the edge of forever," she answered softly. "Like watching galaxies born and die in a single breath. Beautiful and terrifying simultaneously." The description resonated with his internal experience, the vastness of Kronos' perspective constantly balanced against Issei's human limitations. Akino's hands resumed their movement, now tracing patterns across his chest where the hourglass mark pulsed in counterpoint to his heartbeat. "The divine essence is concentrating here," she noted, fingers following the owl-influenced designs that had emerged after Athena's gift. "It's attempting to establish dominance over the original titanic patterns. Is that problematic? Potentially. Supernatural energy naturally seeks hierarchy, dominance and submission rather than true integration." Her touch became more focused, pressure increasing slightly as she worked to redirect these competing forces. "What we're attempting is balance rather than conquest, allowing both energies to coexist without either subjugating the other." As she spoke, subtle changes occur. Beneath her hands, the golden patterns shifting, flowing, reorienting into new configurations that somehow incorporated both titanic and divine elements without conflict. The occasional dissonance Issei had been experiencing gradually subsided, replaced by harmonious resonance between the different supernatural energies. "There," Akino said with evident satisfaction, her hands coming to rest on his shoulders. "Much better alignment. How does it feel?" Issei conducted a quick internal inventory, testing the connections between his various power sources. "Smoother, more cohesive, like instruments that were slightly out of tune have been properly harmonized." "Excellent." She moved around to face him, remaining within the ritual circle. In the candlelight, her features held an otherworldly quality, beauty transcending conventional parameters, violet eyes reflecting golden light from his markings. "There's one final step to fully stabilize the integration." Something in her tone suggested this final step involved considerations beyond technical energy manipulation. "What does it require?" he asked. A faint blush colored her cheeks, though her gaze remained direct. "Energy circuit completion. The most efficient method is." She hesitated briefly. "Direct transfer." Understanding dawned. "You mean a kiss?" she confirmed, the blush deepening. "Connecting the two primary energy focal points. Yours centered in the chest, mine in the throat chakra due to my fallen angel lineage." The suggestion wasn't unwelcome. Akino's beauty and complex personality had fascinated Issei since their first meaningful interaction. Yet he hesitated, aware of potential complications. "Rias," he began uncertainly, "understands energy requirements," Akino completed for him, a knowing smile curving her lips. "Devil society has different perspectives on exclusive relationships than human culture, particularly regarding powerful individuals with complex supernatural natures. This was true." His emerging Titan memories confirmed that divine beings rarely limited themselves to single partners, and devil aristocracy traditionally maintained multiple relationships for political and practical purposes. "If you're uncomfortable with this approach, there are alternatives," Akino added, her expression growing more serious. "Less efficient, requiring multiple sessions over several days, but potentially adequate." The rating game loomed 9 days away. Efficiency mattered. "I'm not uncomfortable," Issei assured her. "Just concerned about potential misunderstandings." Then allow me to be perfectly clear. She met his gaze directly, all teasing gone from her manner. This ritual serves a practical purpose, stabilizing your energy integration. But I would be dishonest if I claimed my interest was purely technical. I'm drawn to you, Issei Hyodo, to your dual nature that mirrors my own divided heritage, to your acceptance of complexity without judgment, to the power you contain without flaunting. The honest declaration touched something deep within him, recognition of kindred experience transcending conventional attraction. I feel the same, he admitted. Your complexity fascinates me. You understand balance between conflicting natures in ways few others could. With that mutual acknowledgement, the remaining distance between them seemed to dissolve naturally. Akino leaned forward, one hand rising to rest against the hourglass mark on his chest while the other cupped his cheek with surprising tenderness. Their lips met with gentle precision, not a kiss of passion primarily. Though that element certainly existed, but a connection of energies seeking harmony. Warmth spread from the point of contact, cascading through Issei's system as titanic and divine Issei. NCES found new equilibrium with each other and with Akino's unique fallen angel, human hybrid energy. The golden markings on his skin brightened momentarily before settling into steady, harmonious luminescence. When they finally separated, both were breathing slightly faster, though the ritual's primary purpose had clearly been achieved. Successful integration, Akino noted with professional satisfaction, though the lingering blush on her cheeks belied her businesslike tone. How do you feel? Complete, Issei answered truthfully. Like puzzle pieces that were slightly misaligned have finally clicked into proper position. She nodded, rising gracefully from the ritual circle. The harmonization should remain stable now, though periodic reinforcement may be necessary if you absorb additional foreign energies. The implication that such reinforcement might involve similar intimate contact hung unspoken between them, neither acknowledged nor denied. Thank you, Issei said sincerely, retrieving his discarded shirt. Your expertise is invaluable. We all contribute what we can, she replied with a small smile. My unique heritage provides certain advantages in understanding mixed supernatural energies. Just as your dual nature offers unprecedented tactical possibilities. As they extinguished the candles and prepared to leave the meditation room, Akino paused at the door, her expression becoming more serious. One final observation, if I may. Of course, the balance between your human and Titan aspects appears to be shifting more rapidly than initially projected. Athena's essence has accelerated the awakening process substantially. Concern showed in her violet eyes. Be cautious with how much power you access during training. Full manifestation before proper integration could have unpredictable consequences. The warning resonated with Issei's own internal assessment. Each day, more of Kronos' abilities became accessible, memories clearer, cosmic perspective more dominant. The human teenager who had once concerned himself with mundane pursuits seemed increasingly distant, like a character in a half-remembered story. I'll be careful, he promised. The synthesis remains my primary goal, neither fully human nor fully Titan, but something new that preserves the essential qualities of both. She nodded, seemingly satisfied with his response. Rest well, then. Tomorrow's training will build on today's progress. After they parted ways, Issei returned to his guest room, mind processing the day's developments with preternatural clarity. Athena's intervention, the accelerated training, the energy harmonization ritual with Akino, all pushed his evolution forward at unprecedented speed. Yet as he prepared for sleep, staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, a troubling question emerged from the depths of his consciousness. When the awakening was complete, what exactly would he become? Would Issei Hyodo still exist in any meaningful way? Or would the human element be merely decorative, a thin veneer of mortality stretched over an essentially titanic consciousness? The question remained unanswered as he drifted into sleep, where dreams of cosmic battlefields mingled with images of modern Kuo town, past and present, divine and mortal, power and connection swirling together in kaleidoscopic patterns that defied simple categorization. Morning arrived with gray skies and gentle rain, appropriate weather for intensive indoor training. Issei woke feeling unusually refreshed, the energy harmonization from Akino's ritual having apparently facilitated deeper rest and more efficient recovery. The golden markings on his skin had stabilized into clear, defined patterns, primarily titanic in origin but now incorporating Ments of Athena's divine essence in complementary rather than competing arrangements. He traced these new configurations with thoughtful fingers, recognizing the symbolic language of power they represented. Breakfast with the Occult Research Club proved a subdued affair, everyone focused on the day's training objectives rather than casual conversation. Rias reviewed the schedule with characteristic thoroughness, emphasizing areas requiring particular attention based on yesterday's results. Issei, you'll work with Kiba this morning on temporal enhancement of weapon manifestation, she directed. Theoretical models suggest potential synergies that could allow his sword birth to create blades with chronological properties, time-delayed cutting effects, acceleration fields confined to blade edges. Possibly even limited causality manipulation. Ambitious, Kiba commented with his usual good-natured enthusiasm. But certainly worth exploring. Kaneko will join you for the second session, Rias continued. We need to refine the temporal momentum amplification technique. Currently, the effect dissipates too quickly for maximum impact. The white-haired rook nodded silently, Methodica, LLY consuming her breakfast with single-minded focus. Though she rarely spoke, Issei had come to appreciate her practical approach and surprising tactical insights during their training sessions. Ino and I will prepare the dimensional overlay for this afternoon's group exercise, Rias concluded. We'll be simulating raiding game environments with particular emphasis on the specialized arenas Riser typically requests. As the others finished their meals and prepared for the day's activities, Rias approached Issei directly, her manner casual but her eyes evaluating. You seem well rested, she observed. The energy harmonization ritual was successful. So she did know about last night's session with Akeno. The realization shouldn't have surprised him. As king, Rias maintained comprehensive awareness of her peerage's activities, particularly those involving supernatural energy manipulation. Very successful, he confirmed, meeting her gaze directly. Akeno's expertise in balancing disparate energies proved invaluable. Something in Rias's expression softened. I'm glad. She approached me yesterday with concerns about the divine, titanic energy dissonance in her proposed solution. I agreed it was the most efficient approach given our limited preparation time. The matter-of-fact acknowledgement of the situation, including its more intimate aspects, reinforced the cultural differences between devil aristocracy and human social norms. What might have created complicated jealousy or possessiveness in human relationship dynamics was addressed with pragmatic openness in devil society. Thank you for understanding, Issei said simply, genuinely appreciative of her perspective. Of course, a small smile touched her lips. Though I admit to a certain professional curiosity. Why about the energy harmonization process? Perhaps you might demonstrate the techniques with me as well, when time permits. The subtle invitation carried clear implications beyond mere technical interest. Before Issei could formulate an appropriate response, Kiba approached, training schedules in hand. Ready when you are, the knight announced cheerfully. I've set up the practice arena with SP. Issei released barrier configurations for weapon manifestation experiments. With a final meaningful glance at Issei, Rias moved away to join Akeno in their preparations, leaving him to follow Kiba toward the day's first training session. The morning passed in focused experimentation, yielding promising results that exceeded even their optimistic projections. By manipulating temporal fields around Kiba's manifested swords, Issei could indeed imbue them with chronological properties, creating blades that cut through both physical matter and the time surrounding it. Extraordinary, Kiba breathed, examining a practice dummy that had been bifurcated not just physically but temporally, the two halves existing in slightly different time streams, one moving fractionally slower than the other. The tactical applications are tremendous. Their success continued when Kaneko joined them for the second session. By carefully synchronizing temporal manipulation with her rook-enhanced strikes, they eloped a technique that effectively multiplied her already formidable strength, allowing her to deliver impacts with the combined force of multiple simultaneous blows compressed into a single moment. Useful, the petite girl acknowledged after demolishing a reinforced concrete block designed to withstand devil-level strength. Her typical understatement couldn't quite hide the satisfaction in her golden eyes as she surveyed the pulverized remains. Lunch provided a brief respite from training intensity, though conversation remained focused on tactical refinements and strategic planning. Issei noticed subtle changes in the group dynamic, increased confidence, more fluid coordination, genuine optimism regarding their rating game prospects despite the numerical disadvantage they faced. The AF Turnoon brought full team exercises in the dimensional overlay Rias and Akino had prepared, a magical construct that accurately replicated various rating game environments while allowing for controlled practice without structural damage to the actual club building. We'll focus on 3 primary arena types, Rias explained as they gathered in the shimmering magical space. Riser typically requests environments that complement his fire abilities, urban settings with flammable structures, forested regions prone to spreading conflagration, occasionally desert landscapes that limit water-based countermeasures. The simulated environments proved remarkably realistic, complete with appropriate atmospheric conditions and structural details. As they practiced various tactical combinations in each setting, Issei found his strategic perception, enhanced by Athena's divine essence, automatically identifying optimal positioning, timing, and power application for maximum effectiveness. Your battle field awareness has improved significantly, Rias observed during a brief rest period between simulations. Is that Kronos' military experience emerging, or Athena's strategic influence? Both, I think, Issei replied. Considering the question, Kronos commanded armies across cosmic battlefields for eons. That experience provides fundamental tactical understanding. Athena's essence adds specific divine war strategy, particularly regarding coordinated group combat rather than individual power application. The combination is formidable, she noted with evident approval. Riser relies primarily on overwhelming force and regenerative abilities rather than sophisticated strategy. Your approach represents a significant counter to his usual tactics. As evening approached, they concluded the day's training with a full team debriefing, analyzing progress and identifying areas requiring additional focus. Despite the intensive schedule, everyone appeared energized rather than exhausted, success breeding confidence. Shared purpose overcoming physical fatigue. We've made excellent progress, Rias concluded, satisfaction evident in her voice. 2 days of training completed, 8 remaining before the rating game. If we maintain this trajectory, our preparation will substantially exceed initial projections. With formal training concluded for the day, the group dispersed for individual recovery activities. Hiba mentioned sword maintenance, Kaneko simply disappeared with characteristic silence, and Akino departed to prepare dinner for those staying in the old school building. Left momentarily alone with Rias, Issei found himself recalling her earlier comment about demonstrating energy harmonization techniques. Before he could determine whether to address the subject directly, she spoke. Walk with me, she suggested, gesturing toward the door that led to the building's rooftop garden. There's something I'd like to discuss privately. The rooftop garden provided panoramic views of Kuo town spread beneath the evening sky, lights beginning to illuminate the growing darkness as businesses and homes transitioned from day to night. A comfortable seating area surrounded by carefully tended plants created an atmosphere of secluded intimacy despite the open setting. Beautiful view, Issei commented as they settled onto a cushioned bench, the city spreading before tea. Hem like a carpet of jewels against velvet darkness. One of my favorite places, Rias admitted, her crimson hair catching the last remnants of sunset. It reminds me why I chose to establish my territory here rather than remaining in the underworld. There's something compelling about the human world. Its transience creates a poignancy that eternal realms lack. The observation struck Issei as profoundly insightful, particularly coming from a devil princess with potential lifespan measured in millennia rather than decades. I've been meaning to ask you something, he said, seizing the opportunity for personal conversation after days focused on tactical matters. Why did you attempt to revive me that night? When Rainer attacked me, you had no connection to me, no obligation. Yet you intervened. Rias considered the question thoughtfully, her gaze directed toward the distant horizon. There were practical considerations, of course. I sensed unusual potential in you during our brief encounter at the oak tree, not titanic essence specifically, but something that registered as significant on supernatural scanning. But that's not the complete answer, Issei observed. A small smile acknowledged his perception. No, it isn't. She turned to face him directly, cerulean eyes reflecting the emerging stars. There was something in your demeanor during that brief interaction, a dignity beneath the ordinary teenage exterior. A sense of contained potential. It intrigued me. So curiosity led you to save my life. Curiosity initiated interest. Compassion motivated intervention. Her expression softened with genuine emotion. No one deserves to die alone in a park at sunset, regardless of supernatural potential or practical value. The simple humanity of her motivation touched something deep within Issei, a recognition that despite her devil nature and aristocratic heritage, Rias Gremory possessed fundamental kindness that transcended supernatural classifications. "Thank you," he said simply. "Not just for the intervention itself, but for everything since, accepting my dual nature, supporting my awakening, including me in your household despite the complications of brought. You've more than repaid any perceived debt," she assured him, her hand moving to rest lightly on his. "Your participation in the rating game alone would balance the scales, even without cons. Idering the broader implications of your awakening." The contact between them seemed to intensify as she spoke, simple touch conveying connections that transcended physical sensation. Through their joined hands, Issei became aware of her energy signature, crimson and gold, powerful yet controlled, fundamentally different from his own yet somehow complementary. "About this morning," he began, her comment about energy harmonization. "Your suggestion regarding the techniques Akeno demonstrated." A faint blush colored her cheeks, though her gaze remained direct. "Was entirely serious. As king, I should understand all methods that enhance my peerage's capabilities, including energy harmonization processes." The diplomatic phrasing barely disguised the personal interest beneath. Issei found himself responding to both the stated reason and the unspoken desire it concealed. "The process requires appropriate setting," he explained, unconsciously adopting Akeno's methodical approach to the subject. "Controlled environment, ritual circle, specific energy flow patterns. I've taken the liberty of preparing such an environment," Rias replied with a small smile that suggested both amusement at his formal description and anticipation of what might follow. "If you're not too exhausted from today's training." The invitation was clear, the choice entirely his. Issei considered the complex factors involved, his growing feelings for both Rias and Akeno, Devil's social norms that differed from human expectations, the practical benefits of energy harmonization balanced against potential emotional complications. Yet beneath these considerations lay simpler truth. Connection with Rias Gremory had become increasingly important to him, transcending practical alliances or supernatural politics. "I'd be honored to demonstrate the techniques," he said simply. Her smile brightened with genuine pleasure as she rose from the bench, still holding his hand. "Excellent. I've prepared the Western meditation room with appropriate materials." The Western meditation room proved similar to its Eastern counterpart where he'd worked with Akeno, though decorated in European rather than Japanese aesthetic. Ornate candelabras instead of simple candles, a circular design inscribed on the floor with what appeared to be crushed gemstones rather than salt and herbs. Devil adaptations of the original ritual components, Rias explained, noting his observation of the differences. "The fundamental principles remain the same, though the specific manifestations vary according to supernatural affinity." As she secured the door behind them, Issei noticed subtle changes in her demeanor, the school club president and rating game strategist receding, revealing something more personal and vulnerable beneath. "The ritual requires direct access to energy focal points," he explained, repeating what Akeno had taught him. "For Titanic essence, that means the chest area where the primary markings appear." Rias nodded understanding, her fingers moving to the buttons of her school uniform blouse with practical efficiency. "And for devils, particularly those with power of destruction affinity, the primary focal point is here." She indicated the center of her forehead, just above her eyes. As she removed her outer garments, Issei was struck by the curious blend of clinical pragmatism and intimate vulnerability the situation presented. Devil aristocracy clearly approached such matters differently than human society, treating supernatural energy exchange as practical necessity while acknowledging the personal elements involved rather than pretending they didn't exist. When she finished, Rias stood before him in a simple camisole that preserved modesty while allowing access to the necessary energy points. The garment's deep crimson color matched her hair perfectly, the obvious coordination suggesting careful preparation rather than casual selection. "Shall we begin?" she suggested, settling gracefully in the center of the ritual circle. Issei removed his own shirt, revealing the golden markings that had become more defined since Akino's harmonization ritual. As he joined Rias within the circle, he noticed her studying these patterns with scholarly interest beneath more personal appreciation. Fascinating integration, she observed, fingers hovering just above the hourglass mark on his chest. Titanic temporal symbols perfectly balanced with Athena's strategic motifs. Akino's work was exceptional. She has unique insight into balancing disparate supernatural energies, Issei acknowledged. Though the process differs slightly with devil energy compared to fallen angel essence. How so? Rias inquired, genuine curiosity evident beneath the personal context. Devil energy, particularly your power of destruction, resonates at different frequencies than divine essence, he explained, recalling information from both Akino's instruction and his own awakening Titan knowledge. It requires more precise channeling to prevent potential feedback loops. She nodded understanding, hence the modified ritual components. What's our first step? Synchronized breathing establishes initial resonance. Issei instructed, settling into position facing her within the circle. 7 counts inhale, 7 hold, 7 exhale. As they matched their breathing patterns, the crushed gemstones surrounding them began to glow with subtle crimson light, responding to Rias's devil energy as it activated within the ritual parameters. The atmosphere in the room shifted perceptibly, air becoming charged with potential, ordinary physics slightly suspended in favor of supernatural principles. Now, direct contact establishes primary connection, Issei continued, reaching forward to place his palm against the center of her forehead, the focal point she had identified for her specific devil energy. The moment their skin connected, awareness cascaded through his system, not just of Rias's physical being, but of her essence, her fundamental nature expressed in patterns of power that transcended conventional perception. Crimson and black energy swirled beneath his touch. The famous power of destruction that characterized Gremory, Bale bloodlines manifesting as beautiful yet terrifying potential. Extraordinary, Rias whispered, her eyes wide as similar awareness apparently flowed in reverse, granting her perception of his titanic essence. Like touching eternity itself. The description echoed Akino's almost exactly, suggesting something fundamental about his awakening nature that transcended individual perception. The next phase involves energy circulation, Issei explained, his voice dropping to match the intimate atmosphere. Your power flowing into me, mine into you, establishing harmonic resonance rather than dominance patterns. As he spoke, he guided her hand to rest against the hourglass mark on his chest, completing the circuit between them. Golden light from his markings responded immediately, brightening and extending tendrils that wrapped around her fingers like affectionate vines seeking connection. The sensation that followed defied Ed's simple description, power flowing between them in complex patterns, supernatural energies recognizing fundamental compatibility despite their different origins. Devil and Titan, destruction and time, crimson and gold interweaving in harmonious rather than competing configurations. I can feel the difference, Rias murmured, wonder evident in her voice. Compared to normal devil energy exchange, this is, she searched for appropriate words, more complete, less transactional, because we're establishing balance rather than hierarchy, Issei confirmed, maintaining the careful channel of power between them. Neither dominating nor submitting, but creating complementary resonance. As the energy exchange stabilized, new patterns emerged on Issei's skin, subtle crimson highlights appearing within the golden markings, representing the integration of Rias's essence alongside the existing titanic and divine elements. Not competing, not displacing, but adding new dimension to the evolving whole. The final phase completes the circuit, he explained, conscious of the intimate implications of what would follow. Direct connection between secondary focal points, yours at the throat, mine at the solar plexus. Understanding showed in her cerulean eyes, along with something warmer than mere technical interest. And the most efficient method for this connection, similar to what Akino demonstrated, Issei acknowledged, maintaining honest transparency about the process. A smile curved Rias's lips. Then we should proceed with optimal efficiency, shouldn't we? With that simple statement, the remaining distance between them dissolved naturally. Their lips met with gentle certainty, not a kiss of mere physical attraction, though that element certainly existed, but connection. Edwin essences seeking harmony beyond conventional limitations. Power surged through the completed circuit, titanic and devil energies finding perfect resonance as the ritual reached culmination. Golden markings on Issei's skin brightened dramatically before settling into new patterns that now incorporated crimson elements alongside the gold and blue, representing the successful integration of yet another supernatural energy source. When they finally separated, both were breathing more rapidly than the ritual strictly required, the technical purpose having evolved into something more personally significant during the process. Successful integration, Rias noted with satisfaction that transcended professional assessment. Her fingers traced the new patterns on his chest with evident fascination. "How do you feel?" "More complete," Issei answered truthfully. "Each energy source adds new dimension to what I'm becoming, not just additional power, but expanded perspective." She nodded understanding. "That aligns with theoretical models of supernatural energy integration. Though practical examples at this level are extremely rare." Her expression grew more serious. "Does it concern you, this accelerating evolution of your nature?" The question touched his core uncertainty, the fear that Issei Hyodo might eventually disappear entirely, subsumed by Kronos' vastly more powerful and ancient consciousness. "Sometimes," he admitted, "especially when I access deeper titanic abilities or recover particularly vivid cosmic memories. The human perspective seems increasingly limited, almost childlike in comparison. Yet essential," Rias countered with surprising intensity. "Your human aspect provides qualities the original Kronos lacked: compassion, adaptability, genuine connection. Without those elements, you would simply be another powerful being seeking dominance, regardless of your intentions." Her perception struck him as profoundly insightful, recognizing the unique value of his human nature not as limitation to be transcended but as essential component of what he was becoming. "Thank you," he said simply, "for seeing both aspects as valuable rather than hierarchical." "Always," she promised, her hand finding his as the ritual energies gradually subsided around them. "Whatever you become through this awakening, remember that both elements matter: Titan and human, cosmic and personal. Power and connection." The moment held perfect balance between supernatural significance and personal intimacy, harmony achieved not just between energy patterns but between beings navigating extraordinary circumstances with genuine care for each other. Eventually, practical considerations reasserted themselves. They extinguished the ritual components, restored the room to its original condition, and prepared to rejoin the others who would undoubtedly be wondering about their extended absence. As they approached the door, Rias paused, her expression becoming more formal though warmth remained in her eyes. 8 days remain before the rating game. Our training continues tomorrow at increased intensity. We should both rest well tonight." "Of course," Issei agreed. Understanding the necessary transition back to their public roles, she is king and strategist, he is auxiliary combatant and tactical asset. Yet as they returned to the main building, something fundamental had shifted between them, connection established that transcended supernatural politics or rating game alliances. Whatever challenges awaited in coming days, they would face them with new understanding of each other's essential nature. The remainder of the week passed in intensive preparation, training sessions growing increasingly complex as they refined tactical combinations and strategic approaches for the upcoming rating game. Each day brought new progress, new techniques, new confidence in their collective capabilities despite the numerical disadvantage they faced. Issei's abilities continued developing at accelerated pace, his control and precision improving dramatically under the structured guidance of Rias and her peerage. The integration of multiple supernatural energies, titanic, divine, devil, created possibilities that defied conventional classification, allowing him to develop techniques that would likely surprise even experienced rating game participants like Riser. Yet alongside this technical progress, personal connections deepened as well. The energy harmonization with both Akino and Rias created bonds that transcended formal alliance, establishing foundations for relationships that might evolve in directions uniquely suited to Devil Society's more flexible approach to such matters. Even Kaneko, initially the most reserved regarding his titanic nature, gradually demonstrated increasing trust, particularly after he helped her refine a technique that incorporated temporal manipulation into her rook-enhanced strength, creating impact potential that exceeded her previous limitations by orders of magnitude. Useful, she had acknowledged with characteristic understatement after demolishing a training target specifically designed to withstand high-level supernatural attacks. The faint smile that accompanied this assessment represented significant progress in their working relationship. Kiba, naturally friendly and adaptable, had embraced collaborative training with enthusiasm from the beginning. Together they developed sword techniques incorporating temporal elements that would provide significant tactical advantages in the raiding game. Blades that cut through both physical matter and the time surrounding it, creating wounds that resisted conventional healing due to their chronological components. 3 days before the scheduled match, they prepared for transition to the dimensional training space Rias had arranged, the specialized environment where time flowed differently, allowing extended preparation compressed into hours of normal world time. Pack essentials only, Rias instructed as they gathered in the club room. The dimension provides necessary accommodations but lacks certain conveniences of the human world. Will we be able to continue energy harmonization rituals in the altered dimensional space? Akano inquired, her practical question carrying personal implications understood by those involved. Yes, Thog, with slight modifications to compensate for the temporal differential, Rias confirmed. I've included necessary components in our equipment allocation. As final preparations proceeded, Issei stepped outside briefly, seeking a moment of quiet reflection before their intensive final training phase began. The school grounds spread before him in late afternoon sunlight, ordinary students visible in the distance as they departed for the day, their normal lives continuing in blissful ignorance of the supernatural events unfolding nearby. A presence manifested beside him without warning, one moment solitude, the next accompanied by a figure radiating divine energy. Your progress exceeds projections, Athena observed without preamble, gray eyes studying him with analytical precision. Ration of multiple supernatural energies while maintaining stable human consciousness represents unprecedented achievement. You've been monitoring me, Issei concluded, unsurprised by her sudden appearance or her awareness of his development. As agreed in our arrangement, she confirmed. Though you've neglected regular communication regarding your awakening progress. Things have been eventful, he acknowledged, turning to face her directly. The raiding game approaches, requiring intensive preparation. Ah yes, your commitment to the Devil Princess and her matrimonial difficulties. Athena's tone conveyed neither approval nor condemnation, merely observation of fact. Curious priority for a being of your potential significance. Not merely priority, necessity, Issei corrected. These connections ground my human aspect, preventing the titanic essence from becoming dominant prematurely. She studied him thoughtfully, head tilted slightly in that bird-like manner reminiscent of her owl manifestation. An interesting hypothesis. The emotional anchoring stabilizes integration that might otherwise become unbalanced. Exactly. Yet risk remains, she noted, her expression growing more serious. Your power development accelerates beyond conservative projections. The raiding game will likely trigger significant manifestation under combat conditions, potentially exceeding your current control parameters. The assessment matched Issei's own internal concerns, though he hadn't shared them fully with Rias or the others, not wanting to introduce additional worry before the critical match. I'm aware of the risk, he acknowledged. But the alternative, allowing Rias to be forced into unwanted marriage, is unacceptable. Something in Athena's expression shifted, not quite softening, but perhaps reflecting new understanding. Personal connection superseding cosmic caution. Very human prioritization. She paused, then added, not entirely without merit, from certain strategic perspectives. Coming from the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, this qualified endorsement carried significant weight. I've brought something, she continued, producing a small silver medallion from within her blazer. The object gleamed with subtle divine light, ancient symbols inscribed around its circumference. A stabilization talisman, specifically calibrated to temporal energy patterns. It may help maintain control during critical manifestation phases. She offered the medallion with surprisingly direct gesture. No political preamble, no additional conditions attached to the gift. Consider it investment in continued balance between your dual aspects. Issei accepted the talisman, immediately sensing its harmonizing influence as it contacted his skin. The golden Markings across his chest responded to its presence, settling into more stable patterns as if recognizing beneficial resonance. "Thank you," he said simply, genuine appreciation in his voice. This will help significantly during the rating game. Athena nodded acknowledgement, her practical nature apparently satisfied with his response. "I'll continue monitoring from appropriate distance. Should your manifestation exceed safety parameters during the match, I may intervene, not to prevent victory, but to ensure containment of potential temporal disruption." The statement represented both warning and reassurance. She would respect his commitment to the rating game while maintaining cosmic responsibility regarding his awakening Titan nature. "Understood and appreciated," Issei replied, recognizing the reasonable balance her approach represented. She studied him a moment longer, her expression unreadable. "You've formed genuine attachment to these devils," she observed finally. "Not merely alliance of convenience or strategic positioning." "Yes," he confirmed without hesitation. "They accepted me without reservation when most would have responded with fear or hostility. That merits loyalty beyond tactical considerations." Loyalty, Athena repeated, as she had during their rooftop conversation days earlier. A concept the original Kronos understood poorly, if at all. She paused, then added with what might have been the faintest trace of approval, "Perhaps this integration creates improvement rather than merely dilution." With that cryptic observation, she stepped backward, and transformed mid-motion into the great horned owl that seemed to be her preferred alternate form. The bird circled once overhead before disappearing into the late afternoon sky, leaving Issei alone with the silver talisman and his thoughts. As he returned to the club building, the medallion concealed beneath his shirt alongside the golden markings, Issei considered Athena's warning regarding power manifestation during the rating game. The risk was real. Combat conditions would naturally trigger accelerated access to his titanic abilities, potentially exceeding his current control capacity. Yet the alternative remained unacceptable. Rias deserved freedom to choose her own path, not forced matrimony disguised as political necessity. Whatever risks his participation entailed, they were risks he accepted willingly for her sake, and for the sake of the others who had become important to him during this extraordinary awakening. Inside, final preparations for the dimensional training space neared completion. Equipment packed, strategies reviewed, contingency plans established. 3 days of intensive preparation in altered time flow awaited them, the final phase before confronting Rias and his complete peerage in official rating game competition. As Rias activated the transportation circle that would carry them to the specialized training dimension, her eyes met Issei's briefly, connection transcending words. Understanding flowing between them without need for verbal expression. Whatever challenges awaited, they would face them together, not merely as king and auxiliary combatant, but as beings who had established bonds beyond supernatural classification or political alliance. The transportation circle flared with crimson light, enveloping them in its magical embrace. As the club room dissolved around them, replaced by the shimmering transition zone between dimensions, Issei felt certainty crystallizing within him. Regardless of cosmic implications or prophesied threats, this moment, these connections, represented purpose worth protecting. The silver talisman pulsed warmly against his chest, synchronizing with the golden markings that contained his awakening Titan essence. Balance maintained, integration continuing, human and divine aspects harmonizing rather than competing for dominance. When the light faded, revealing the dimensional training space that would be their home for the equivalent of 3 intensive days, Issei stepped forward with newfound resolution, ready to complete their preparation for the battle that would determine not just Rias's future, but perhaps his own as well. For in defending her freedom, he had found something the original Kronos never possessed: connection worth preserving, loyalty transcending cosmic power, purpose beyond mere dominance or survival. Whether human or Titan or something new entirely, these values would define whatever he was becoming through this extraordinary awakening. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.